capitalism, all of the gains in automation, it goes to the owner class. All you have to do is have everyone be an owner, and now suddenly any gain in automation is a gain for everybody. If you grow just one thing, it may not grow as well as if it grows with another thing. A good example of that is called the Three Sisters method of farming.
There is definitely multi-apartment buildings or multi-families that do passive design.
$100 million that they gave to Joe Rogan that they would kind of be out if they breach contract. Is that a bigger number? Or is $2 billion a bigger number?
I don't know, Zach.
It's a tough one. I know.
Really hard.
And maybe comparing numbers is not Jeremy's strong suit. Gotta go kill a Jenny.
I still don't think you should kill her. I don't think it's a good idea.
It's a ghost, dude. Well, hello and welcome everybody to Bread Theory. Tonight we are going to continue on in the Permaculture 101 series. I have Dan Plaat of the Three Left Show joining me today. How you doing, Dan?
Pretty good, pretty good.
That doesn't sound pretty good. What's going on in your life?
Very stressful things. Just the normal amount, I suppose, for anyone else. I just want to let you know I'm getting an echo because you have speakers on. I don't think you need your speakers on if you have your earbuds in.
Oh, I don't have speakers on.
No speakers?
No.
Maybe not. Why would I get an echo? Because I'm hearing it on your end.
Huh. Let me pop out. Still an echo?
Let me. Yeah.
Hello, test. Yeah. Let's see. Maybe I got an additional audio source that I didn't mean to.
Yeah, I'm just hearing my voice in probably in your mic.
That's strange. Like my headphones are not even that loud. I just got little earbuds. Are you still hearing it?
No, actually.
Okay. Well, I turned on echo cancellation, so maybe that took care of whatever that was.
I believe it has. Okay, great.
All right.
So yeah, a little personal things, a little personal drama.
I'm sorry.
My father is. I won't go deep into it, but he's.
That's right. Yeah, of course.
My father's sick, and yeah, probably on borrowed. You know, he's. The situation is he's on kind of not borrowed time, but limited time. So there's a lot of that. I do have my video on.
Okay.
I do. I mean, I do have my cam. If you want to turn my video on.
Oh yeah, go for it.
Oh yeah, I would do that. Okay.
Yeah, you do that. All right, there you are. Well, I'm sorry to hear about.
Well, otherwise, I went ice skating. Returned mail from mail that was collected for former roommates.
Yeah.
So, basically arranging a meetup for the crew of producers at the producer of the community radio station that I help manage. Cool. So there's things to be stressed about that are happening, and I just started my new job.
Well, I mean, congrats on the new job again.
It's if I didn't explain it before quite well, but there's an office that does basically the checking for all the school districts in New York outside the boroughs. So maybe because either local planning departments aren't to be trusted, or because the state can have a record of every project that any school district undertakes. We have our team of architects and engineers that issues the building permit and issues project numbers to the school district that does any construction. So it's the office that does that, and I'm basically their support monkey, the support cubicle monkey. I mean, and yeah, so I'm basically doing all the things that free up the main staff to do more reviews of drawings and whatnot. So it's not an architect's office. I mean, it's technically an architect's office, but I mean, it isn't, of course, doing architecture. But we're the middleman.
It's foot in the door, though, isn't it? Do you have any interest in pursuing architecture still, or is that kind of gone by the wayside?
I would say no. unless it's something really special
Sure.
opportunity. But at this point, it's only, I think it's just going to continue to be a hobby. And maybe, I mean, there's no cutoff for when you can like take the licensing test or something, but
Sure.
there
Sure.
is a like you need 3 years in an office, so
Yeah.
which means I would need to be hired by an office. And my career goal right now is to work 7 years for the state and retire with minimum pension, so I can work part time on community projects and building revolution.
Very cool. Very cool.
That's my career goal. And because
And
what I realized in architecture school was that being in that field isn't changing the world as much as you're being changed. Your work is influenced by capitalism.
oh
And
man,
so
easily.
it's like I wouldn't be building the things I want to build or design uh, as long as it's in a capitalist economy.
Mhm.
Or,
Yeah.
or I would have to be in the industry for 30, 40 years before you're quote unquote able to do what you want. But even then, it is still dependent on what kind of clients can afford you,
Mhm.
which in the case of an architect is the state, corporations, and individual rich people or bourgeois, whether
Yeah.
they are of the creative class, not caste, or a small business bourgeois. There's small business
Yeah.
bourgeois, and then there's like liberal bourgeois, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, the same is pretty much true for urban planning as well. Like, I mean, not that I would mind getting an urban planning job, but very difficult to break into. And then once you do, it's doing sign ordinances for 30 years and doing, plat reviews and, all that sort of stuff that is
Parks
basically
and
just,
Rec. It's the world of
yeah,
Parks and Rec.
right. It's a lot of box ticking and stuff like that. And not a lot of actual
Ooh,
pushing for
quoting
anything.
bullshit jobs, huh?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Trying to work that in there.
Well, you could
uh,
say my office is managed is a group of box tickers.
uh,
But it's mostly we're giving other people boxes to tick as well.
uh-huh,
But it's
uh-huh.
all to, but the boxes are checking every project for, various things.
Yep. Yeah, no, I mean,
Safety
box,
and keeping track of
sure.
spending and whatnot.
There are non-bullshit box ticking jobs. That's for sure. Especially when it deals with safety regulations and stuff like that. But yeah. All right. So,
So I'm just here as a
um,
guest. You lead.
all right. Um, so you wanted to talk about some urban permaculture tonight. So I came up with a playlist of videos. Most of them are pretty short, so we should be able to whip through them pretty quickly about some various aspects of applying permaculture to the urban landscape. Because I mean, I would say a good 85 to 90% of permaculture is applied to rural lands. It's all about getting your own homestead, being self-sufficient. There's a lot of prepper stuff that intersects with permaculture, but not a lot of it that focuses on where most of humanity lives. And now over 50% of the U.S. is urban, which I mean includes suburbs, but still, you know.
Yeah. Back to land movements were very limited to maybe data needs to be collected on, and maybe there's some books been written about it. There certainly are some books about the back to the land movement, which was about building things outside the city. And there's still the remnants of that in various communes and collectives across the
Hmm.
country in various areas that do ecological things or but it's not mass, it's not building a mass movement. It's not, doesn't have the capacity to. It's
Sure.
not. It's like prefigurative politics, but like so they're used as an educational platform to teach other people to do more where they live. I also
Hmm.
want to just a word on language. You're a landscape guy, landscaper, so you use
Yeah.
the word landscape. In architecture, we use the phrase built environment
Yeah.
to refer to basically any man-made uh,
Hmm.
landscape, whether it
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
urban, rural, or suburban.
Sure. Sure. There's definitely a lot of overlap, especially when you're talking about permaculture. And I mean, the big idea with urban permaculture is bringing as much of the, I guess, what would be the natural environment into that built environment, and you know, using the natural flows of an urban landscape to your advantage, as much as possible,
Yeah.
maximizing that
Well,
vertical space a lot.
it's also recognition that even when you're doing gardening, landscaping, bioswales, that's still built by humans. So it's a built environment. So
That's true.
everything in the
That's true.
city is part of the built environment.
It's
So it's an
technically a built
all-encompassing
environment.
term.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
an
yeah.
all-encompassing term, so it doesn't distinguish between one thing or another. But whether it's a park, I suppose a pristine preserve would count as not the built environment, but everything around it would be.
Yeah, that's fair. Um, I'm just trying to share to as many permaculture groups on Facebook as I can, get as
Hmm.
many people in here as possible. But I
Your
thought we'd start. Oh,
sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
your intro is pretty snappy. I hadn't seen it before.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure you picked out your little segment in there as well.
I I was surprised. What made that one jump out to? Why was that one picked?
I originally had a longer bit of that, but I had to chop things down.
Yeah,
But you
sure. Okay.
know, I just wanted to include as many of the regular guests as possible in the mix there. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, it was a good conversation that we had, and so that's what made it jump out in the first place. Um,
I see.
it was another time we were talking about kind of permaculture and urbanism and stuff like that, and so yeah, that's kind of why I
Mm.
put it in there. Um, yeah, I'll probably end up redoing it, tweaking it here and there as the show goes on. But I'm pretty happy with the way it turned out for now, anyway. All right, I think I've shared to enough places, so we can get into it. Yeah, I always got to be self-promoting here.
No, hey, you got to market yourself.
You do, you do. uh, yeah, well, James, I'm always happy to have more people on the show. It's not as though you have to have your own radio station to or radio show to make the guest list here. So if you ever want to come on yourself, that's definitely something we can arrange. It just depends on what you're interested in talking about. But I like having all kinds of people. All right, so this first one here that I wanted to start with, it's a pretty short one, only about 12 minutes. I don't think there's any dialogue, but there is music, so I'm just gonna mute it just
Yeah,
to be
it's
safe.
kind of like a
Just
life hack instruction video.
Yeah, yeah. It's like a listicle, but with more explanation.
How to
That's really
start a balcony vegetable garden.
yeah, yeah. And for a lot of urban dwellers, that is your only space that's outdoors you have any control over whatsoever,
Assuming you have a balcony.
assuming you even have that. But that seems to be the standard way to build, at least in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Um, is pretty much every mid to high rise that goes up, there's
Hmm.
at least a small balcony per every unit, which is a trend that I like. I like having that liminal space, kind of between the public and the private, give everyone their little slice of outdoors. Um, yeah, I like it that way. But let's take a look at some of their tips. This person has an I think she said an 8 square meter balcony, which is rather large. Um,
Meters.
yeah, 8 square meters,
Yeah,
I
that is
believe she
big.
said. Yeah. Um, so you don't commonly find balconies quite that large, but still, there's a lot of stuff that you can gain from just the various stuff that she's done. So let's take a look. Oh boy. Yeah, I'm going to turn off the closed captioning because I think it already has
Your
captions.
audio isn't on.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it off just because it's only music and I don't want to
Oh,
get
okay.
copyright
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
struck. But I will read out
How does
the
this video
caption.
not get struck then?
That I don't know because it didn't list any music in it. But I've had it happen before where
I'm just wondering, like, how
it'll get
all
a
of
prompt.
this ecosystem of YouTube can have music of various types and not be the actual producer, the you know the part
Right,
the
right.
corporation, and they're not getting
Yeah.
struck. Like I mean, and the radio,
See, maybe it
you
is.
pay like a few $100 rent that
Right.
basically that covers a clearinghouse of companies that basically allows you to
Yeah,
play
yeah.
basically any music.
Right, right.
But
You're
it's
paying all
it's
the
a
big
it's a
ones.
it's a rent that you're paying.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure how it works. I mean, it seems to be more popular on YouTube now to rather than just strike your channel to claim the revenue share for it. So you demonetize it and all the money goes to the copyright claimant. So maybe that's what happened in this case, and this is a non-monetized video for them. But I don't really know.
Wait, is that my problem? I need to demonetize. I thought I did that. I turned all my videos like I'm not monetizing any of them.
Really? And you still get claims, huh?
Well, maybe I
I
haven't
guess.
and I forgot. And okay, so that's something to look into. I'm still
Yeah,
a
something
total
like it.
noob when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I'm an expert by any means either.
I know.
Um,
So we're
but
in it
I just
together.
kind of just yeah, that's right. I'm just kind of
But
learning
as
as I
I'm
go.
uploading things and I have literally a minute long music clip from Kill to Kill and I forgot to take it out, so now I have to re-upload it.
Yeah.
It's annoying as hell.
Oh, and thanks for the follow, uh, Asanor 90090.
Hmm.
Thanks for the follow. We're talking about permaculture tonight.
Welcome.
Um, so welcome. So I'm going to read out the closed captionings as they
Hmm.
go, just so that the people who are, consuming this as an audio experience
We can hear your
can get
voice.
the fullness of it. Yeah, you can have more of my my rich dulcet tones in your ear. All right, so there's a loveliness to the life that doesn't to life that does not fade. First captioning there. Winter, it is the time for home. January and February are such good times. So this is February, um, February through May. Thang Nam, I probably am butchering that name. I don't know if that is the person's name or the town's name. But you can see it's a rather large balcony. I would say it's probably like maybe 6 to 7 feet by probably 10 feet, something like that.
12.
For 12, yeah, you're gonna go as far as 12 for my American audience. But she has a bunch of raised bed planters set up all around the perimeter there. There's a tree on the balcony, so I'm assuming this is a more tropical to subtropical environment. Um,
Well, Thang
and
Nam is a city. I believe it's
Gangnam, okay,
a Thai or Southeast Asian city.
I was gonna guess
So
Thai, but
and
yeah,
so and I think giving the winter months, meaning winter as in they're I mean it's still tropical even when it's
right,
winter.
yeah, it's the off season, or it's
Right.
probably the rainy season, I would bet.
Hmm.
But anyway, continuing on. All right. So this is June. So we already see that things have really popped up in just a month's time. Oscar Wilde said once, "Wisdom comes with winters." Okay. August. So it's about halfway covered in growth at this point. You have squash that have rambled all over the place. You have various things that have climbed up trellises. There's tomato plants and whatnot that have really leafed out. And preparing our garden space, but more importantly, preparing our mind is the key to success and a fruitful vegetable season.
Go put out those good vibes.
There you go. So this is 28 essential tips for starting a balcony garden.
No, I think it's number 28. So this is in a series.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. Well, number one, anyway, check the rule and regulations. Yep, yep. Probably a good place to start if you're not allowed to have that. The
You
HOA
should
is usually gonna not
you
be
should know
too
the
shy.
rules even when you're gonna break them.
That's right. Yeah,
Gotta know the
yeah.
rules you're breaking.
Right, right. So yeah, if you are gonna break the rules, you can be selective and discreet about it. So yeah, check the regulations for your building. If you live in a rented place, which is gonna be most of us, how much added weight you have on your balcony, that's important. And something that people don't often think about is that especially when that plant is fully watered with the soil and the weight of the plant and the water all together. It gets pretty. It's a lot of weight per square foot, so you gotta be careful about that. Which is why so many people use containers rather than large planting beds.
Yeah. And it's all dead load. You're adding more dead load.
Right? Yeah, it's not a distributed load at all. So you got to make sure it can hold that up. I'm reminded of there was some picture. It was like part of a meme or something like that, and these people had made a kiddie pool on their balcony. they, they
Hmm.
like put down plastic sheeting and filled it up like a foot or two, and it's like, oh man, that's gonna give way at any
Oh, you
moment.
mean the whole balcony?
The
You mean the
entire
whole
balcony
balcony
was turned into a kiddie pool
was a pool?
with like
Mm,
plastic sheeting. It's like, who,
right.
and why is the neighbor just filming this too? Like, why aren't they like calling somebody? But whatever. But yeah, people don't realize how heavy water is. But if you've ever had to carry even a case of water, uh, shouldn't be too surprising that it adds up pretty quick. And last but not least, the plant itself. Yeah, gotta keep that weight in mind. Especially, it's more if you have trees. Fabric grow bags combined with lightweight soil mixes. If your balcony can endure heavy loads, you can use wooden raised beds, and that's what they've done to take most, to get the most out of your space. And she's, I mean, assuming all that stuff came from that garden, she's getting quite a bit of harvest from just that small space. Maintenance is important, even in a small garden.
She has also built a not a canopy, but something that's, I don't know if it's reflecting light onto the bed
Oh
or it's
yeah,
acting as a shelter.
yeah. I'm not quite sure. Yeah, it could be like a season extension sort of thing. Although I doubt she would get too much cold there.
Yeah.
But
Or
yeah.
it's something that as the vines or leaves grow out, you can tie that stuff up above so that
Oh,
it's
that could be
not,
too. It's like a
flowing out.
it's like an up and over sort of a trellis. Yeah,
Yeah.
that could be. So she's hand pollinating her squash plants. I don't know if that makes things work better or what the idea behind that, but she's got tomato, lettuce, runner beans. She says even if your balcony is big, I recommend starting small and slow. That's always good. There's a permaculture principle: small and slow solutions. But if you start slowly, you can get a feel for it, what works and what doesn't, and that's observe and interact in permaculture before making it too big. Number three, set a budget for yourself to begin. Don't buy ready to plant plants unless you want to spend a fortune. So yeah, you're always gonna save money planting seeds rather than actual starts. And you can get a much wider variety of stuff that way too. So especially when you're just starting out,
Hmm.
that's definitely a good way because you can save a lot of those seeds at the end of the year. Not everything. Like I've never had success saving pepper seeds before, but I think it's because of they're pretty much all just hybrids, and it makes them sterile. But a lot of stuff like tomatoes, most tomatoes you can save. Uh, Most like squash and beans and stuff like that too. All right. Try to find a spot, sale, pots, or DIY your own containers. Only thing you need to spend good money on is quality potting soil.
Well, unless
Like,
you compost for the year prior and then you
well,
have a
yeah.
big,
And you can just keep building up and building up. Yeah.
but that would be difficult on, I mean, no, you could compost on a balcony. You just need a tumbler. You need an actual enclosed tumbler.
Yeah, or
And
like
that
a
itself
worm.
is that itself is kind of a heavy.
This
What do
has
you
a
mean
heavy
the
load
worm?
too. Yeah, you could use like a worm bin too. Kind
No,
of
that.
accelerate your composting. Or you could, if you really want to do it, there's black soldier flies, but that requires taking them indoors in the winter time in colder climates. So that might not be an option for you.
Wait, active flies.
These are black soldier flies. So they're unique in that the adults they only drink water and mate and die, so they don't spread disease of any kind. But their larvae are just some of the most voracious eaters out there. There's videos which maybe we'll show one tonight where they can strip an entire fish in like 48 hours, like the bones, skin, muscle, everything, down to it.
So the idea is that you enclose that set up so that when the flies
Yeah.
mature, they have nowhere to go, and the population doesn't, double or
Yep,
spread.
there's that too. And then like they are
Unless,
they are
unless one
endemic
gets
to
out, and then your kitchen has a swarm.
yeah.
But that's
But they are endemic to like the middle states and below in the US, but up in the colder climates, I don't believe they overwinter as well. So that's the other reason you'd have to bring them in. So you'd have to make some sort of a fly aviary in your apartment, which your landlords might not be too happy about.
how does one get these black soldier fly larvae unless it is just a common fly in certain areas?
I mean, yeah,
That's
if
the
you're
point.
in some of those lower
Yeah.
latitude states, then you can attract them. I think fermented corn is the thing they are attracted to most.
Uh-huh.
Um, but otherwise, you can order their larvae, and
Fermented corn.
yeah, yeah.
Is that like a food staple somewhere?
I don't know exactly.
Imagine it would be, but
Yeah, it certainly could be. I imagine it would be a good way to. You can make like corn alcohol, I suppose. So there's
it's
probably.
it's so probably so gross. It's like, what's the fermented anchovies
Ooh,
that
yeah. I don't know if I've ever tried anchovies.
well,
But
the idea is that there's this, you know, grossest food imaginable that's like this canned fermented
oh, that
herring.
stuff. That oh yeah, that's what you're talking about. That stuff from one of those Scandinavian countries. I can't remember which one.
Well, probably Sweden.
Yeah, Sweden, Norway. They all love their extreme food preservation methods. Yeah, that one that you have to like open up underwater because
Pretty
it
much.
smells so bad. Oh, well, I don't know if I'm brave enough to try that sort of thing. All right.
Moving on.
So she said that regular dirt is not sterile and brings disease and problems. There is pretty good bag dirt now. There's two brands that I know of. One is I think they're both from Fox Farms, and one is like their rainforest blend, and the other is like their living ocean blend. And they incorporate mycelium in there as well, and worm castings and all sorts of stuff. It's not just the potting mix; it's like a whole living ecosystem at the same time. They're very expensive though, so it would be like your top layer. You'd put it on, just top dress it, and then fill the rest with whatever you got.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for as far as filling raised beds, doing
yeah,
hugelkultur is kind of the
yeah,
way to go.
yeah, absolutely, and you can
That's
certainly do
where
that.
that's where you put in a log or sticks
Hmm.
as a volume filler, and then mulch and
Yeah,
looser stuff, and then you only need a stack of topsoil for the seed to go in. And then
right,
once
right,
it
right,
grows the roots will do the rest and breaking things up,
right, right.
making do.
Yeah, and the one caveat that I know of about hugelkultur is that it for the first year or two, because there's so much carbon that you put into it, it tends to suck all the nitrogen out of the soil as it breaks down.
Hmm.
So you need to either add a bunch of nitrogen or grow things like beans and peas and stuff that's gonna fix nitrogen in there. But yeah, long term, there's a few better ways to do it than hugelkultur because it
I
just
was
breaks down
able
into a big sponge, basically.
I was able to grow kale in
Yeah,
in a hugelkultur bed that was fresh.
that's
That
very
and
cool.
a lot of lamb's clover came out of it, which is a
Oh,
weed,
okay.
but it's an edible weed that cooked up similar to spinach. I
Yeah,
had a good time eating it.
very good. Yeah, there's a lot of edible weeds. We should do an episode. I should find a video on edible weeds sometime because there's a whole lot out there.
Because a
Like,
lot of lamb's clover grew in our these
yeah.
garden beds. They weren't well maintained, so we had a lot of weeds. But the
Hmm.
lamb's clover we just left going, and
Nice.
at least I did. And
Yeah.
it was because it was like the leaves were like a waxy, more furry spinach,
Hmm.
so it wasn't. It was pretty tasty.
Yeah. That sounds pretty good actually. All right, let's keep going. All right, a balcony vegetable garden with a few pots may not be very expensive, but it also totally depends on what you want to have there. She's got some strawberry plants there. So it's better
She's
to
got a
take
lot
your
of small
time.
pots.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and that's the other thing you got to consider. Do you want a lot of
Few
small things or
few $100s of investment.
Yeah, it certainly could be.
which so
But in the long run, if you're coming back to it year after year, it can definitely pay for
yeah,
itself and
basically
continue to grow.
add $20 in,
Hmm.
every few months.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
$20 for the first batch of seeds, $20 for some
Hmm.
plastic um, plant holders, so on and
Yep.
so on.
Yeah, that's not a bad way to do it at all. I just got some. Those look like daisies there. Uh,
Though I am uncomfortable with the mindset of like, don't use soil from the wild. That stuff is bad and has disease. It has an ecosystem in it. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Why
Well,
would you
yeah. I mean, it
buy
should.
soil with ecosystem? I mean, maybe it's
Right.
because all the seeds we're buying are just super fragile, and so we should be using more heirloom seeds. Is that maybe the true advantage of
I
the
don't.
heirloom seeds, that they can grow in heirloom soil that isn't
Yeah.
from a manufacturing plant?
I mean, the only thing that makes a plant an heirloom is that it's never been. Uh,
Crossbred. Yeah.
yeah, it's never been messed with genetically by
Oh, okay.
growers.
I see.
So
Oh,
not even crossbred. Like
yeah.
not even
Which
on a
is
very basic level.
uh-huh.
Um,
Well, I think the point is
so
that it has been crossbred, but just not GMO.
well, I think it hasn't even been. It's not even been hybridized with anything else. It's just
Uh-huh.
someone found a wild variety and just cultivated it. So it's
Uh-huh.
I guess it's closer to a wild variety. I don't know that there's any. I don't know of any studies that look at how much it's. Um,
How resilient it is to
yeah, how resilient it is
using,
compared
because
to
I
conventional seeds.
the soil I'm using right now, which of course isn't in a lot of things, but I was able to grow some basil with
Hmm.
soil from my backyard. And
Yeah.
or rather, it's not so much soil, but it's basically the compost bed, so to speak,
Hmm.
which is a year old now, so it is soil. But
Hmm.
um, the current setup we have is a compost bin given to us by the city. The city is encouraging backyard composting with
Hmm.
this big 5 foot, not 5 feet, but 4 foot tall bin with a big lid on top. But it's meant to be buried, and right now it's just sitting flush with
Uh,
the ground. So the way it's sitting right now, animals can just go right in through like this
oh,
place
oh
where
no.
it's supposed to come out on the bottom, and there's a lid,
Sure. Yeah.
like a door that goes up.
You pull it up
But when it's
and put it in there.
closed, I think it's supposed to be going into the ground. So it's closed, but it is basically an inch gap.
Oh
So
no. So the critters
everything we
just get
put
right
in,
in.
yeah, it's getting fanned out around it, corn
Well, I guess that's
cob.
one way to get it spread naturally. You don't have to do as much work. Just
Yeah, but
let the
it's
rodents do
not
it.
it's not making. I mean, it's a way of disposing organic trash. It's just not making compost though.
Hmm.
Where before I was basically half or fully burying it in the batches, and then
Gotcha.
I kept turning it, and it was
Yeah.
making soil.
Okay. Huh. All right. All right. Well, let's get back to the thing here. So we haven't gotten too much into it yet. So you got to figure out how much sunlight your balcony is getting, and obviously choose the right vegetables for the season. And the amount of sunlight is the most critical issue. That's always going to be the case. So in the northern hemisphere, if you have a nice south-facing balcony, that's going to be the best for most of the vegetable crops that we grow. Your tomatoes, your cucumbers, squash, lettuce, all love a lot of sun. They're all annuals, and they thrive in sunny conditions. So if you can find that south-facing balcony, then you consider yourself pretty lucky.
Well, no,
East
no,
or west?
they have to share with the north-facing balcony,
Yeah.
or the ones with north-facing balconies need to chip in for the cost for the south-facing balcony.
I mean, that sounds like a business opportunity for a lot of people then too.
Hmm.
But yeah, why not? Um,
Should be something that a building organization could do.
yep, for sure.
But
For sure.
really,
Or
it's on the architect to design apartment buildings for maximum south-facing growing
yeah.
space.
Well, and
Not
that's the truth too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you can get away with east or west facing too. It's just you have to be a little bit more careful. The west facing stuff tends to be the hottest part of the day, so you have to take that into account. And the east facing is more cool because by the heat of the day, it's in the shade. So you gotta plan accordingly. Um, but those are definitely feasible too. It's just that the north one's hard. You can still grow things on the north. You can grow ferns, but you can eat the young shoots of ferns. You can grow.
Unless you're in
Um,
the Australia, then it's reversed.
well, yeah, yeah. And in Australia, everything I'm saying would be taken backwards. So Australia, South America, southern half of Africa. Yeah, um, take that the other direction. Um, and if you're in the tropics, really, you don't have to worry about that much at all because the sun is mostly overhead most of the year, especially through the growing season. So then you have a different set of
Problems.
conditions to
Yeah,
worry
yeah,
about.
right. Well, that's why they grow so much.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, figure out the exact amount of sun you get. Your balcony receives during how much it receives during the growing season. Keep in mind that most vegetables need a minimum of 6 to 8 hours of sun a day. I mean that's a lot. I would say at least 4 hours is the minimum, and the critical times are between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. That's when you get the most direct sunlight. If you can get that, you can get away with growing most anything. 6 to 8, that's quite a bit. You'd have that's pretty much only a south-facing uncovered balcony that you're going to find that. But maybe you got that, and you're lucky. So yeah, if yes, then you have the ideal balcony for growing vegetables and lots of flowers and most veggies. Keep it well watered. Balcony faces north or is shaded by other buildings or the balconies above you, for that matter. Look for herbs or vegetables that can grow in partial shade. Yeah, there's a lot of good herbs that grow in partial shade too, like oregano. Some mints do okay in shade. Um, but yeah, that's a cool trellis she's got there. She's got her tomatoes on it. It's got her squash growing up it. I'm really making use of that vertical space, and that's really the key with doing permaculture in a city. Is you gotta it's the integrate rather than segregate. So you gotta look at as many surfaces as possible to maximize your vegetation that you can pack in there.
And better yet, and you have something grow in a trellis, which then provides shade
Mm-hmm.
for the plants under it that need
That
partial
need the
shade.
shade. Yeah, there you go. That's really stacking your functions
Perfect.
there. Having that synergy between the
Hmm.
different plants and their needs. Yeah,
And that's what the tree is for as well. The tree allows other things to grow up it.
absolutely, absolutely. So there's some that grow in the shade but slower. Meanwhile, full shaded areas receive no direct sun or reflected light during the day. It's simply not a good place for growing vegetables. Well, there's still some you can grow. You can grow hostas there, and hostas are edible as well, especially the newer tender leaves. There's
Hostas,
always something you can grow. Yeah, hostas. Yeah, they grow in pretty deep shade. Um, there's some other ones too.
strawberry.
Mushrooms. You could really get a mushroom crop growing
Mhm.
there. Um, yeah.
I just got some. There's a business called Collar City Mushrooms because Troy is the
Hmm.
Collar City, and I don't know. It's
Oh,
because it was via Food Not Bombs, but the date didn't look like they were processed that long ago. Meaning they were packaged and put on the shelf. But when I opened it, and this was already, I guess, spent mushrooms because they were given the Food Not Bombs. I don't know if they were donated fresh or not,
mm,
but
mm.
this variety really did smell like feet in its aroma. The oyster
Wow.
mushrooms. I think there was all oyster mushrooms, but these were like red oyster mushrooms. They were red.
Oh, I don't know if I've
Um,
ever seen red
the
ones.
non-red
Interesting.
ones were fine, and I was able to cook with them because I had to give them a really like 3-take sniff test because of when I noticed, like, I think it was because I was touching the red ones and then I brought my hand up to my face, and I'm like, "What the hell is that smell?" And then I'm like giving each mushroom the sniff test to like see, oh shit, I put them in the pan already, and there's the red ones that were like, I was like really thrown back. I'm like, that
Oh
is a
no.
rancid foot smell right there.
You know, at least when it comes to cheeses, I don't necessarily even mind the footiness of a cheese. I don't know if I would.
Your Limburger.
Oh, I love a Limburger. Any sort of the washed rind. That's the category of cheeses that smell the worst. And I think there actually are some commonalities between uh, the aromas that they give off. Like it's the same sort of bacteria that makes your feet stink or something like that.
Hmm.
But yeah, so I got a high tolerance for that. I don't think I've ever encountered it in mushrooms though. So that would be a whole different experience.
It was a new sensation, so it was. Wish I could have had more mushrooms in there, but
Yeah,
yeah, I wasn't cooking with those.
I can understand that. I can understand that. All right, moving on. So all plants need sunlight to grow. So if you're, I mean, and that's the thing. If you're outside, you are getting sunlight. The sky is bright. It's
Yeah,
indirect, but you're going to get sunlight.
there is
It's going to
always
be,
indirect light. Yes.
yeah, yeah. It's gonna be. So the general rule is flowers and things that need flowering, especially for pollination, grow more in the sun, and things with less conspicuous flowers and a lot more vegetative growth, a lot more leaves and stuff, do better in shade. But
I mean, you'll notice if you ever go to the woods, I mean, you
mhm,
got all this like tree cover,
right,
and there is stuff growing under them.
stuff growing, yeah, yeah,
So obviously, direct sunlight isn't everything, but there
right,
are obviously things that do need that. But I mean, that's why
mm, hmm,
you say a minimum of 4 hours, as long as it gets it for some of the time during the day,
yeah, yeah,
um,
yeah,
right the right angle, and then it can be indirect the rest or
yeah,
size.
absolutely,
Um,
yeah,
but it's not an exact timer thing,
right. And there's a lot of
but it's
stuff too
also
that will
yeah,
grow. There's stuff that will grow. It just won't grow as fast or get as
yeah,
large by the end of the
or
growing season.
it'll take longer, or like it's just
Right.
like solar panels. You're not maximizing how much electricity you
It's a good
could
way
get,
of putting it. Yeah.
um,
Very true.
but you still get something, probably not enough to pay off. But see, that's a cap. That's more where it's like it's an actual capital asset, where natural things like growing things it's
Hmm.
still an asset, I suppose. The seeds are an asset. The things you're
Yeah.
growing are assets. Um, but obviously it's varied.
Sure. Indeed. So she's growing white asparagus, chicory, sprouts, microgreens, wheatgrass, ton of stuff.
She was referring to success stories.
Oh, success stories that she's had. Okay. Very good
Hmm.
to know. So is your balcony on a terrace? Is it windy? Um, yeah, watch out for extreme conditions. The higher you are, the more wind you're likely to have. That's an important consideration too. Hot and drying wind can quickly dry out your plants, so you can build a trellis to block the wind if you need, which gives a space for vines to grow across. Um, and then you also save on water because that protects things dry out less quickly. By planting larger plants that are wind resistant in front of the more tender ones, you can also put plants that don't like wind near the floor of the balcony to give it more protection. But yeah, just consider all the patterns, all the energy patterns that are affecting your balcony. That's the bullet point there. So not all plants thrive in extreme heat, like lettuce, so it needs to be considered when you plant it. Lettuce tends to be more of a spring and a fall crop. Uh, so you can cover the soil to retain water. You can also use a living soil cover, like if you planted in some white clover or something like that. That can act as like a living mulch. And clover is another one of those ones that fixes nitrogen. It's also edible itself, and it attracts pollinators, and it can help. It doesn't get too tall to shade out the rest of your plants, so use it like you would a ground cover, like with straw. So yeah, and the more water you retain, basically, the less you need to water. It seems pretty
It does
self-explanatory.
not stop weeds, though.
It does. I mean, clover does to a certain extent because you're filling that niche. And the thing about weeds is that they tend to thrive in disturbed soils. So they do best where there's nothing right now. So the more niches that you're filling, uh, the more or the less of a chance weeds are going to come in and compete. You're right; it doesn't completely smother weeds, but it's better. It's better than having bare soil for sure for that
Sure.
purpose. But yeah, look at all that stuff that she's pulled off just her balcony there, and that's all stuff that didn't have to go onto a truck, didn't have to get packaged, um, didn't have to potentially spoil just sitting on the store shelves. Um, and you didn't have to go to the store to get. So that's a lot. That's a lot less energy, ultimately, that you're embedding into your food. And you're never going to be able to grow all of your food on a little balcony, but every little bit helps,
Yeah.
and it's also a few square feet less that needs to be cultivated out in the countryside. So you're preserving wilderness more too, the more you grow. Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, the cities probably can never be completely food independent. Even
They're
some of
never
those.
meant to be.
Well, yeah, right. They're meant for people more first and foremost.
I mean, the most
But
extreme. I don't know what tendency to file it under. I could think on it, but there's kind of a maybe it's primitivism almost that like cities are just for making money. Like they exist so people can like. That's not why they exist, of course, historically. I mean, we can
yeah,
take a look at that, but yeah,
sounds great.
it's reductionist, but
Right.
it's like cities are just for money. That's why we have to go back to the land. I'm actually going to read something like that from the Hood Communist.
Oh,
But
cool.
yeah, where it's like the solution is just like not so much like giving up or building revolution means leaving the city because, or rather that this is more of a something I was reading a book about post punk, or it's a
Hmm.
conference of post punk artists talking about almost like how from the 2000s on the cities and rural areas are so fixed
Hmm.
in their circumstances and things. Like there's no space to be creative or to do anything new or different. You have to go to the suburbs because that's where the actual cheap land and living kind of is, which I wouldn't agree
Eh,
with since you still need to be car dependent and all that.
right.
Um,
And
but
that's the main thing.
I get what they're saying where like there's it's not like in the areas outside of a city, but not yet maybe in actual rural areas
Hmm.
that in the first 10 miles
Right.
outside of a city. And that's where you can buy land for a few $1,000s and start homesteading, which I know some people
Right.
have done that, especially those that are on disability. I know somebody
Hmm.
who's part of Food Not Bombs. We're volunteering right now, and she got some rescue cats and what, or no, actually, she said they were kittens. One of them's
Hmm.
a rescue, but she's growing stuff, whatever. Another guy I know is like maybe he really didn't start doing this, but he was like raising bees again on like a piece of land that like you bought for
Oh,
a few grand or something. I don't
that's
know how
cool.
much you paid for it, but I mean it's out in bumfuck, no, the boonies.
Yeah.
But
Right.
that's kind of where you can do something. Otherwise, even when you're in the hood now, everything is slated to be gentrified.
Hmm.
And so everything is waiting to be bought by some New York City yuppie. So instead of being 50 grand, it's going to be 120 to 150 to 200 grand.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
And I mean, that right there is the problem with commodifying housing. It's housing it doesn't even necessarily it's not even necessarily for people. It's
yeah,
it's rather
it's
an
still
investment tool.
it's still a piece of shit house, but it's like it's twice as
Right.
much as
But
what I would want to pay for it because it's expected to be paid by someone who can afford to renovate it.
renovate it or knock it down and put up a mid-rise or something like
Yeah,
that.
that's not really what's happening, but
Hmm.
the stuff that's
Happens a
being
lot
knocked.
in Minneapolis.
It's a bigger city than Albany. But
That's true.
yeah.
That's true.
But yeah, windows are closing real quickly.
That's disheartening to hear. And I mean that your friend is right that there is a trade-off to be had, and if you're getting priced out of a city entirely, I mean, where do you go? But at the same time, if you're way out there in the boonies, how do you organize at all? Like, how do you even get people out to help on the farm? Um, and then you're dependent on a car for everything, um, and
Well,
it just
the
doesn't seem like there's a good all-encompassing
local
solution.
my local transportation agency was selling their old buses for $9,000 a piece.
Oh, were
So
they?
it would be theoretically possible once
Okay.
fundraised to buy a bus, and you could actually just have your own like charter bus that goes around between these farms or whatever. But
Yeah,
you
there you
know,
go.
or like the hippies that buy an old school bus and they convert it into a mobile home.
I suppose once you get out into uh, the farming towns and stuff like that, I mean, you could just own a piece of property, but then live in the little town. So that way you would at least have a little bit of community. Be able to walk to the bar still, walk to a grocery store and stuff, and then just drive off a couple miles to actually go work on your piece of property there.
To the
So that
land.
could be a different way of doing it, where you could still have that community and
Mm.
and your land at the same time.
Something
That,
to
that doesn't.
try. It's something to try though. In New York, a lot of those small towns aren't great farming land, or they're.
Hmm.
It's just well, you're doing it almost for pleasure or just as a community function. It's not
I
for
see.
profit, because there's no money. Or the Fed, the
That's
Fed will
good.
pay you to grow corn, but the land is terrible for corn,
Well, I mean, that's probably true.
or
Yeah.
just corn. Suppose if
Yeah.
they were planning for Three Sisters style, but
Yep. Well, hey, there's an option as well. All right, let's continue on with the balcony thing. We'll get on to another video. So small sketch on paper is enough to plan it out, give you a count of all the opportunities, all the different flows of the energy through your space. Arrange the beds in larger containers around the edge. Distribute the weight. Balconies are useful microclimates. They differ significantly from regular climates, even though there can be different microclimates within a balcony. If one area is shaded, it's one climate. If another area is exposed to wind, it's another microclimate. So choose which veggies to grow where. And that part of that's just going to be trial and error. You throw some stuff out and see if it does well. Um, so yeah, tomatoes don't like shady areas. Got it. Just getting carrots up there.
well, she has some pretty big raised beds, so
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
doing root
pretty deep.
vegetables.
That's true.
But for me, I think I would just go with leafy stuff and then root vegetables, which are more easily, grown in mass
Mm-hmm.
mass
Yeah,
industrial farms.
you could grow quite a bit of potatoes in a container setup like that.
Hmm.
So healthy soil is key. And that's something to remember, that even though you're growing in containers,
Yeah, you have to
the
maintain it.
interconnected soil web is still important. The living soil is still important. Soil is much more than just something that plants hold on to and suck water out of. Soil needs to be fed. Grow your vegetables. Don't feed it with cheap chemical fertilizer. Long before the new growing season begins. Emptied out the pots from the previous season. She's cultivating a lot. That's not necessarily the best thing to do because that's going to break up any sort of uh, mycelium networks in there.
Hmm.
Um, You do get a new flush of nutrients to the top by doing it that way, but it's a
Well,
short-term
I'm
gain
sure you could
for long-term
flip the soil by stirring it up,
Yeah,
but
I
yeah,
just
she's
I'm
mixing in.
always a
By the way, she's mixing in that kitchen waste compost.
yeah. There you go. So she's
It
just
looks
putting it
like
right into.
she's using other weeds and stuff too.
Uh huh. Oh, she's using indoor seating with mini greenhouses.
Yeah.
That's cool.
She's showing herself building that though.
Uh huh.
It's like how much space can you really devote to this in a
Yeah,
small apartment? You know,
that's
if you
true.
really have
That's
the
true.
point of doing it in the balcony is that it's space that you're not normally using a lot.
Right.
Um,
Yeah,
never
and
mind
I see that.
never having an actual chair to lounge on your balcony. That's something not
Right.
shown. But you could
Right.
build in a chair if you don't do all four sides. You just have at least a lounge space, even if it
Yeah.
is
Or
space
just
that
sit in the middle of it. Why not? Just set your little
I
chair out
guess
there.
you have to
And
set up a chair. Yeah, you have to move it
yeah,
out.
yeah. Just literally a folding chair, something you can set over to the side.
That's not cozy.
So yeah, just you put carrots and
Sorry, sorry. We're
radishes.
watching B-roll of her planting, and carrot seeds take forever to germinate. Well,
Yeah.
radishes only take a month to harvest, and you can crunch your way through them. You will never leave space for the carrots to grow, which will never leave space. Or large plants like such as this. Though it starts small,
Already.
it grows a lot chunkier. In the
I,
meantime,
I
and in between,
I like her milk carton starting
plant
container.
seedy crops like spinach.
Yeah.
And by the time the main plants grow into their surrounding space, you will have harvested your intercrop plants.
Yeah. So she's just basically timing things out so that
Mhm.
just as you harvest something is when the next thing needs more space.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Number 9, rotate crops. Planting crops in different ways prevents the depletion of nutrients and interrupts the cycle of pests and diseases. So the soil stays healthy. Meanwhile, monoculture farming goes against any form of traditional crops and growing food. They replant the very same crop species in the very same field
Hmm.
with
And
no
that
other
does
type of
deplete the
plant
soil.
whatsoever. So she's
Not wrong
suggesting
about
crop
that.
rotation. This is the basis of large-scale farm corporations that have been trying to
Mhm.
control our food sources for decades. You're trying. You mean trying? It's trying.
Yeah. I think succeeding is the better word.
I
Yeah.
follow the 3-year rule for all kinds of vegetables. Members of the same plant family should not be planted in the same soil more than once every 3 or 4 years.
Yeah. I've heard this wisdom before too. I don't know how much stock I really put in it,
Broccoli
but
must not be grown after cabbage since they're both members of cabbage family.
I think more than anything, growing specific herbs that attract predatory insects is probably a better way of doing
Mhm.
things than just rotating crops.
Well, she didn't just talk about pest control. She's mostly talking about not the soil depletion. But if she's recharging
Yeah.
all the soil anyway,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
I'm
if she's doing it anyway.
confused why it would be so not needed. But I guess
I mean, it doesn't really hurt
there's other
anything, so
factors. Hmm.
it's not going to hurt anything to
So
rotate
what's this
crops.
one?
So this one's on herb spirals. So this is a really cool
Mhm.
space-saving way. It became really popular among permaculture practitioners
Yeah.
about a decade or two ago. Um,
Although I don't really like it in the more horizontal plan version. I kind of when it's kind of just a way of how to put it, it's more vertical. Like
yeah,
it's just a circle. It would normally be a circle, but kind of extruded up, so
yeah.
that you have a very thin band that is obviously spiraling up. So
Mhm.
the herbs are at different levels.
Yeah, that's the I mean that the good ones are planned that way. I think that's the one that we're going to be looking at right now.
Oh,
And yeah,
okay.
the idea is to have different microclimates based on the ones that are further up are drier because the water falls through the soil column more quickly.
Oh yeah,
Um,
okay. That's why.
and then
That's why
stuff
we
on the
do it.
back side is more shaded, stuff on the front side. So you get a whole
Yeah.
bunch of little
Yeah.
microclimates all
Right,
in
right,
the
right.
same space. I don't know if there's music on this one. Let me find out. We can maybe not just sit here in silence as we watch.
Video, I showed you a
Oh, there we go.
mysterious spiral that I put on the ground using sprinklings of flour. And I asked you, what do you think I'm going to put here? Well, it's been several weeks now, and I am pleased to announce that I now have a brand new herb spiral in its place.
Herb.
I'm Tanya from Lovely Greens, and I'm going to talk to you
Yeah, she has a very interesting accent. I cannot quite place it, but
Herb.
y-
Sorry,
every
sorry,
single
just
thing that every
to you.
plant name that she's going to list is going to be
Uh-huh.
slightly different than the way I would say
Just got to use
So-
some short e's.
it.
Herb. It's kind of
Her.
it's a guy like kind of like the Family Guy, like cool.
Cool.
Herb.
Why
Mean
are you
an
putting all that
herb.
extra air in that word?
You mean an herb garden? No,
Yeah.
herb garden.
No, it's a herb spiral.
Herb spiral.
Uh,
Maybe. Oh, you know, it's I'm sure there's there are guides to UK accents and the various. There's like
I
kind
can't
of.
quite tell if it's UK or not. You'll have to give me your best estimate.
My
as we go
assumption
along.
is I don't know
Yeah.
any American that says herb.
There's some weird northeastern accents.
Herb
I gotta
spirals.
say.
Herb. Yes, it's that longer E.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, so an herb spiral is something that if you have just a small lot, you can do, and get a whole bunch of different stuff out of it. Get a whole bunch of different growing conditions all in the same
Yes.
space.
You use bricks here as the main building material.
Yeah.
So you just fill in a brick barrel of sorts.
So, I mean, even if you were out on the land, it's the sort of thing that you're going to want to put stuff closest to your house on, in still, because it's going to be stuff that you need a lot of
Yeah,
maintenance
and if
for.
it's off the ground, the rabbits won't get to it.
Well, I mean, that's the idea, but rabbits do tend to jump, so it all depends on
Everything
how
can
you build your
climb.
bricks.
I keep
That
thinking
too.
certain tables don't have mice on them, but the mice are getting to certain tables and
Somehow.
freaking me out because they never got to my desk before, and then it's like I'm finding a little turd on my desk. And I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh, that sucks.
I'm not leaving any food on here.
Yeah. Yeah.
today about the benefits of herb spirals and how you can build one in your own garden.
Oh, it's actually pretty short.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not actually as big as I've seen them. I usually see them built up quite a bit
I
more.
like the ones where it's like at waist height so that you're not reaching down. This
I
one is
agree.
only a few, like 2 feet high. It's more of a to me, this type is more of a landscaping feature. I'm not really
Yeah.
seeing the practical point of it, except that it looks nice,
It does look
but
nice.
it's a landscape feature. That's why I'm a little skeptical of the utility, unless it is that certain type where it's like certain
sure.
raised beds. I mean, it is like a raised bed for herbs. It's slightly above ground, so
Uh-huh.
you don't have to get on your knees to deal with it.
Not as hard on your back. But yeah, if she had just going, if she just kept going up stepwise with those bricks, then would have been much more towards
Mhm.
the kind of herb spiral that I
Right,
would prefer.
right. Where it'd end up maybe at least 4 feet high.
Yeah, exactly. But this is still cool, and it there still are some benefits to it, like the bricks themselves will absorb heat during the day and keep certain tender plants warm at night and stuff like that.
Oh, sure.
I'm gonna have to talk over the music so I don't get copyright struck or whatever.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, right. Here she goes, laying out her little.
Don't forget to
That's a very
start your
small herb
national
spiral, too.
leftist project.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not actually that big. Usually herb spirals, it seems like they take up a bigger footprint too, but I think
No,
she
that's
has
the usual size I see them as,
Yeah.
actually. But
Okay.
it's just
It's just not very tall when it comes to
yeah. She's only stepping up every 2 feet. You can do that.
I'm just gonna mute it while the music is. It's too
Yeah,
loud to
yeah.
talk over.
Right. She's
Oh,
not
here we
touching.
So what exactly is a herb spiral? Well, it's a feature that you'll often find in permaculture gardens, and it's a clever way of growing a lot of different herbs in a very small space. So if you have a small garden or a small allotment, this is the way that you could use to create space for all those different herbs and also create the little microclimates that some of them need to survive.
Yeah, that's cool.
I think to a layman, using microclimate to describe
It's
something
planted
that's like a foot by a foot is gonna probably raise some eyebrows.
Yeah.
But I think just referring to the soil condition of like the top, row, the top layer will have less water content,
Yeah.
than
Moisture.
the bottom. Then that's what we're
Mhm.
talking about.
Yep. And there'll
It's
be a
not
little bit of shading from side to
li-
side and front to
yeah,
back,
a little
but
bit, right?
not a whole lot. But
But that does count as microclimate. So
yeah. I mean, it is. It definitely is.
depends on what scale you're at. If you're talking about buildings, then a microclimate is a hillside,
Well, yeah, that's true.
not a
great.
foot that's the few feet that's behind a wall. But it still
Right.
counts. But it does count.
For sure.
This herb spiral about 3 weeks ago, and it's about 5 feet across, and in the center it's 23 inches tall, or just a little bit over that. In
Not
the
even 2
top,
feet.
which is also the center, I have Mediterranean herbs like thyme, sage, fennel. There's also some calendula in here.
It's a calendula. I've always heard it as calendula, but calendula. I guess it's a fancier speak.
No.
Because you know how much I love
No,
it.
that's how you've heard it before.
Well, no. Oh, yeah, calendula. You gotta say it with that. That
Yeah, the
that
calendula.
time.
Yeah.
Well, I guess time wouldn't change, but like get that fennel, that fendal,
The chamomile.
chamomile. Yeah. Well, you've seen the videos where it's like, oh, forget what it's called, but it's like, oh damn it,
But I
it's
know what
like
you're talking-
cheap plants. Like it's this guy who's like he's just looking at wild plants and wildflowers, and he's just like kind of
I know what
flower
you're
sitting,
talking about.
but he's doing it in this like hilarious
Chicago accent.
yeah character acts character of like look at this pretty little thing, this is the kind of thing you get, and he's using very like well researched expert explanations of everything. But it's like what you got here is you got your once a perennial life thing. It's like and the name is like make money or like go broke or something.
It's crime pays but botany doesn't.
That's it. Crime pays but botany doesn't.
Such a great channel. I highly recommend that
one. I was
and educational.
I was exposed because he was like looking. He was just under a highway overpass, so he was just also ranting about litter at the same time. Like I'm gonna go stab this person.
He's like, these fucking guys, they don't care about anything. They just leave their trash out here in the street. Oh, that's great. Yeah, check that channel out. I'll go find it and I'll link it in the chat there.
As you wind around the herb spiral, there are other types of herbs as well. So I've got some chamomile and oregano.
Chamomile. Oh, there you go. Oregano. Oh, it's mean to laugh about the way someone speaks, but
onions as well.
Right, but I've never heard that pronunciation.
Oregano.
They do that
oregano.
The height and the way that they're built. So here at the top, the soil.
Well, it reminds me of like New Agers that like they have to say and do things differently for the sake of it.
Yeah.
So it's like they make they're so special that they have to pronounce things differently, even though no other dialect does so. But it's definitely the father of various jokes.
Yeah. It's like actually it's namaste. It's not namaste.
What's the other one from like Futurama or something?
Oh,
maybe it's Simpsons.
I don't know what you.
Whatever.
I can't think offhand what you might be.
But it sounds like what you just did. So
yeah.
and has better drainage, and it looks and feels a lot drier than this soil compost that's down here with the flat leaf parsley. It's much moister, and I just watered this last night, and you can see the difference. And the height also creates shadow, so that parsley and the chives on the far side will get a little bit more shade.
That will taste some
from
good,
summer
some chowder.
sunshine. And also, I planted some chamomile, dill, and a sunflower here along the south side because they'll benefit from the warmth of those bricks.
Very cool.
If you've not heard the term permaculture before, all that means is that it is an idea of creating systems for the garden and for the home and for society and lifestyle that use and replicate natural systems to create a really efficient and sustainable design. In the case of a herb spiral, what you have is a mound of earth that creates little microclimates, and so it's cleverly creating space for everyone to grow and thrive within the same small space. Herbs are a huge group of plants, and you have your culinary herbs, you have your medicinal herbs. There are so many different plants within that category, and some of them will come from climates like the Mediterranean, so things like rosemary and thyme and sage, and they love sun, they love free draining soil, they don't mind it being a little bit dry. And then you get other herbs. You think about things like parsley, and you think about chives, and they love a little bit more richer and moister soil and benefit from a little bit of shade as well, and shelter in some cases. And a herb spiral creates all of those different conditions for all different types of plants. The design of a herb spiral is basically a mound that you create using bricks in my case, but you could use stone, you could use concrete or wood, and you create a spiral, you fill it in with soil and compost, and you plant things that like it a little bit drier and sunnier at the top, and things that like it a little bit moister and sheltered at the bottom.
I would say using bricks is definitely easiest because you
Yeah.
can make a curve in
Just
the
step it
many
up. Yep.
many lines. Because if you're
And
using wood or anything like
Yeah.
you'd have to cut the wood a bunch of
Right.
times.
Well, the wood's
Or
going to end up rotting too.
that as
Bricks don't
well,
rot.
but
So,
what else would
and
you
the bricks.
use? Concrete would be terrible. Why would you ever build anything out of concrete in a garden?
Yeah, I mean, maybe like cinder blocks, but you're gonna have some really
Oh yeah,
wide.
CMUs, I suppose, but that's still those aren't too cheap for what you're doing.
Right.
But
Maybe
yeah, but I did
they would
think
just
of
take up a lot
someone
of
who
space themselves. So yeah,
I did remember. I think an aunt of mine from Manhattan pronounces it herb like she does.
herb. Oh,
Yes,
from Manhattan, huh?
I'm thinking back to Passovers past where it's like, what is
Interesting.
this herb? Why do we eat it? Why do we
Ah,
only
okay.
eat bitter herbs?
Oh, the bitter herb. Yeah.
Bitter herb.
Interesting.
So,
So,
but that's just the herb thing, not the other pronunciations.
not the wider New York
But maybe it's
pronunciation.
like not the Brooklyn accent, but the
Yeah.
the high class
What's with these herbs
Eastern,
here?
the Atlantic accent
Oh yeah, yeah.
for radio.
I think we got the basic idea of herb spirals. There's a whole half of the video left to go.
Yeah,
What do you
but
think? Do you want to move on to the next one, or?
I'm okay moving on.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we got it. So
she explains
microclimate.
why it's spiral, I guess. Why is a
Yeah.
spiral? Use less space, or
So
like
yeah, she gets like So
she
we
just
get
explain.
it.
Yeah. She's just giving like a full treatise on microclimates, so
Shade,
we cover that.
and that's how big you make it. You lay it out with your little your
Yeah.
powder there.
You're just turning a row inward, so
Yeah.
it is using the same space as like if you just built a 1 foot wide row, but that's not
Right.
usually a good use of a row, like in a layout. So, but just having a square with a spiral in it.
Right. So here's the current video in case you want to go watch the rest of it. Any of you out there in the audience? Oops. And then we'll move on to the next one.
And the next one.
And the next one. So I have quite a few lined up. So we won't get up to all of them tonight, but that is lovely greens. That's
Anything with vacant lots?
Oh, I don't think I've found anything with vacant lots. I think the next one,
Okay,
next one's
what's
kind of
next?
cool.
So
It is so this one is called
This
How to
guy.
Recycle Wastewater Using Plants. Yeah, Andrew Millison, really cool guy, great permaculture designer, and has a lot of background in using
Yeah,
water.
you can even clean your shit.
There you go. So yeah, and he's got this cool transparent whiteboard basically that he likes to make his pictures on, his illustrations. I think
Yeah,
it's pretty
seems a
effective.
little busy though.
I mean, it can be. It certainly can be. But yeah, so he's going to talk about basically, they usually call them like green machines or living machines or something like that.
The
But
living
basically, it's just natural processes of.
Not a machine for living in. That's Corbusier.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
living machine.
Corpus, yeah.
Because all the plants in it are acting like a gear. You know, they're all doing like a
They all
particular
do their part. Yeah.
almost repetitive task.
Right. You know, some like to break down this sort of organic
Yeah,
compound.
and they're arranged in an assembly line of sorts, and that's part
Yeah,
of what
yeah.
makes it mean that it's a line that your waste is moving through, and as it goes through each step, is processed further.
That's the idea. Yep. All right. So take it away, Andrew.
good luck and happy wastewater harvesting.
Okay. So he's got music too. I'm just going to mute that for a second till it comes back.
Why is he saying it at the beginning?
I don't know. I guess this is just supposed to like be the teaser.
He's working
So
backwards.
we're going to see where we're going. Yeah. It's like the, I bet you wondered how I ended up here.
Biologically
yeah,
active
that's it.
soil can clean
I don't know why my closed captioning is now in Arabic, but we'll change that.
There it is.
Yeah, let's do English. There we go.
dirty water. It's as simple
You
as that.
Anglo-centric.
People are dying and ecosystems are being
I mean, if I could, you know, decipher that.
Anglo-centric colonizer, you.
For anyone that does want to go back and read it in Arabic, here's the
can do
video
so.
for that. You can do so on your own time. How about we play? There we go.
ruined by
come on.
poor sanitation and lack of water treatment. Yet this is just one of the easiest things to fix when we collaborate with nature. We're talking about gray water, which is the slightly dirty water from showers, laundry, and sinks. And we're talking about black water, which is water from toilets and other really dirty uses. So let's start by looking at wetland plants. So the root systems of wetland plants are like giant festivals of microorganisms like
Festivals.
bacteria
Festival.
and fungi.
Not
That's right.
that's not a way of phrasing that, but okay. Like a party. Party.
Like a party and every.
I would, I know what he's going. He says it's festival because it's like he's drawing it like they're streamers,
Yeah. There we go.
like a fest.
Organism party can actually
Yeah.
biodegradate
Section said that.
breaking them down into harmless elements. The microorganisms are partying on the roots, and the roots form this mat that becomes a living filter, trapping sediment and supplying food and drink for the festival of life. So in addition to this root filter, some wetland plants can actually absorb heavy metals from the water up into their tissues. So the goal of any wetland water
Which is called bioaccumulation. If you ever heard that term before, but it can be used also as bioremediation if you're purposely planting, you know, mushrooms or particular plants that do this sort of thing. It's a way to decontaminate a site for a lower cost than it would take to mechanically do it.
Yeah, you don't want your root system to be like a strip mall.
Like a strip mall.
I don't know. What's the opposite of a festival?
I guess a strip mall would be a good way of putting it then.
What's the urban opposite of like a festival? A empty plaza, I guess, but something funny. There's a joke here. There's a the better term
It's
here.
a single family detached home.
Cul-de-sac. It's the cul. You don't want your
Cul-de-sac.
you don't
There
want
you
your
go.
roof. But it's not the opposite of a festival. A festival, like what's an anti-festival? It's like something that people would not want to be going to. So I
Work.
guess. Um, oh yeah. You don't want your roof system to be like an office space. Yeah, it's the
A
office space.
cubicle. There you go.
Office space of root systems.
There you go.
To create the maximum amount of contact between the dirty water and the roots of a diversity of
He's
plant
going all in on
species.
this
So the
illustration.
very simplest version of how this concept is used in wastewater treatment is the constructed wetlands. So in this example, wastewater flows into this gravel-filled basin that's planted with wetland plant species and is lined on the bottom with either plastic or cement or some other material so the water doesn't seep into the ground, but it stays in this container here.
I suppose cement is waterproof, but just keep in mind, dear viewers, concrete itself is not. Water does seep through concrete.
It does still go through.
That's why even when you build out of concrete, you still need a vapor barrier,
True.
or you do need a layer of cement, because cement is not the same. And
Right.
and I don't think cement is purely waterproof either. But cement is also very carbon intensive, big footprint.
True.
But
Yeah, I
ecological.
mean, you could just, instead of all that, use just natural clay. That's a natural method of lining.
A professor of mine did that.
Oh yeah.
Where he was doing a house, and when they were digging, it's like, oh, we found clay, so we decided to use it. So we just dug a big pond and
Oh, that's
used
so
the
cool.
clay to sculpt the pond, and then just let the rain fill it in.
That's really cool. Yeah, I like that.
When he's done, I'll explain something else about wetlands. But I've looked up pictures of them in action and how much land they take up to use them in a municipal context.
That's what I
And
always wondered.
it's
Yeah.
small. It's not big. I mean, no.
Oh.
Sorry. What I'm saying is, it is big. It is.
It is
takes.
big. Yeah,
It's
I
like
figured as much.
it's like solar farm big.
Oh,
And
nice.
what the problem with this is, when it comes to cleaning sewage, you don't have a lot of space between, your city on a river, where most cities are, and the river that maybe the drain pipes are going into. So right now, my city, with federal money to basically ensure that we aren't dumping our sewage into the Hudson River anymore when it rains hard, because we have what's called a dual sewer system,
Oh, those are
is
nasty.
we're building a chemically based water treatment plant into the hillside of one of our major parks. I would love there to use this wetland system to do that instead of a big concrete box
Yeah.
built into the hillside with using chemical treatment methods. But it would basically take up the size of the park. Maybe
Yeah.
not even, it would take more land based on what needs to be cleaned. But it's basically one of the major creeks that's under the city right now. And but there's a lot of flooding that occurs. And when it rains hard enough, like we get a lot of flooding backing up. It's mostly because of like all of the city's been working, the water department's been working slowly but surely to ensure that there's more permeable space as well as water storage along the roots of the creeks, which are underground, and daylighting some parts. But there's no daylighting slated yet, except for the one that's on the northern edge of the city that's parallel to the highway already. So you can daylight it. But otherwise, Lincoln Park, old good park, they're filling in the bowl that the wetland would probably be put in, but basically so that they're more functioning sports fields. So otherwise, it wasn't technically possible to do this, because I'm wondering, like, how it's sort of like solar energy almost, where to actually replace how we deal with sewage now with an ecological equivalent would probably take an amount of land the same size as the city itself.
Okay.
And that's
I was going to
not,
ask you that if you had any estimation of like how many families per square foot
I don't
the
know.
ratio would
I would
be.
have to look that up. I think maybe the best way is to look at some municipality that has done this, which, I was looking up pictures to see
Hmm.
like how
Hmm.
a municipal version. And I think I looked up how many gallons of it can take. And I didn't do a comparison of like, could this be done? But it's football
Hmm.
fields, it's like it's measured in football fields, not.
Wow.
And the size of the park that, I would propose it go in is 3 football fields,
Hmm.
which probably isn't going to be enough.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I mean, at the same time, if there is that space adjacent to a city, I mean, wetlands are some of the most critically endangered habitat in the country. So building more of them, I mean, it can be a win-win if it's serving those dual functions.
Yeah, well, technically, I mean, this project is to save wetlands, the wetlands that are
Oh,
actually
okay.
on the edges of the river that are killed by
I
all the
see.
sewage that's dumped in.
I see. I see.
So, but it's like the point is to not have the sewage dump in. So,
Right.
it's not. It's I guess it's not killing the wetlands, but it does kill everything else.
Yeah.
As
Yeah.
New York City has since 2000 has been working on this problem bit by bit because it is built up over a century of bad infrastructure of the
Hmm.
double. So the double, just to explain, since it is so linked with this, the double sewer system is that we just all the sewage and all the storm water. That's the word I want. Storm water goes to one set of
Right.
pipes that have outflows into the river. And this is normally fine. The sewage going through the pipes gets to the water treatment plant for that the county runs. But when the storm water is too much, like during a heavy rain, they get capacity and basically they overflow, and all the sewage gets washed out with the storm water into the river. And basically, you multiply that by the millions of people that live in New York City, and that's why the waters around New York City were always so polluted. Besides all the other pollution, of course,
Well,
but
yeah, all the other industrial pollution and
that's
runoff
the
down
major.
into the
That's
cities.
that's
Yeah.
that was a major part of it, and that also exists in Albany, and as not obviously not the same scale, but it's still a problem that is by law we have to fix. And thankfully, it wasn't an unfunded mandate, and the Fed is providing the money to do it. Otherwise,
Mm.
and it's part of an entire reconstruction for the park. But I was discussing this with my friend about like how our city doesn't do anything new or big. That was stuff with the New Deal. But
Hmm.
the thing about cities like Albany is that the New Deal actually didn't reach us because the political machine was virulently against having anything happen in the city that wasn't under their thumb.
Oh, wow.
And so similar, and it's likely not the only place in the
I'm
country
sure,
that
but
it's happened. But you have a
incredible
local, like
stuff.
you have a local boss that doesn't want someone on the federal level saying what's going to be built or not be built. That someone else have a say who doesn't live here, who isn't either part of your club, but isn't like they're not around here. How can they know what we want or need? Um, so it's not always from a place of just I have to be the boss, but
Yeah.
it is from that place too. So the New Deal and the Great Society completely like missed Albany. We didn't get any benefits from either of those things.
Oh,
It's amazing.
it's
And
incredible.
because you had activists where their main goal was to just institute a new Great Society program, and they were made the enemies of the city government, and county government. Um, it's wild. But
That
it
is
helps
wild.
explain why Albany and other Rust Belt cities declined.
Hmm.
Is that the investments from the social democratic, New Deal era didn't reach us. It was like it just showed up in the form of things that caused harm to the urban fabric, the building of the highways and other big government buildings, state offices and things like that, but nothing that was infrastructure, or rather, nothing that was social infrastructure. Yeah, so like we built more stuff, but then that would disrupt people, and then there was nothing around to help people get by. So social problems would grow, and then everyone has to have crack.
Oh, everyone has to have crack. Okay.
Whatever, you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. I know.
A lot of other things with that, but sorry, I devolved. But
no problem at all. That's
the fact that something big, it's like this counts as something big in our city, that like the park's basically being reconstructed. Because before, the fields were in a bowl, so whenever it would rain, the fields would be waterlogged. They were unusable. And guess what neighborhoods ring this park?
Oh, I bet I could guess. It's the low income neighborhoods. Yeah.
It used to be the Italian, Jewish, and other neighborhoods, but yes, black, and so on.
Yeah.
The Italians were forced out when the plaza was built.
Oh, I see.
That's a story on its own.
See, getting back briefly to the dual storm drain and sewer system. One of my favorite episodes of 99% Invisible was about Chicago, and how at one point I think it's the Chicago River that flows through the city. At one point it used to flow into Lake Michigan, but because of the slaughterhouses and also because of that sewer system, whenever there would be a bad storm, it would overflow and it would just send all of the effluents would all just go surging out into Lake Michigan, and that's where they're drawing their city drinking water from. I mean, you can imagine.
So they reversed the river.
So right. That was their solution, was to reverse the flow of the Chicago River. So it flows out of the city southward and away from Lake Michigan.
And that's why you have the loop.
Yeah.
That's how you have the loop. I don't know. I don't know the true history of that, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
But
I don't know how they did it, actually. I think it was a series of dams or whatever.
It must be something like that.
Yeah, they dam it and they just have a channel go a different direction.
Yeah.
But yeah.
That's pretty incredible, though, I thought. I love that show. But anyway, let's get back on track and back into the video.
Water flows underneath the gravel level, so dirty water is never exposed to the air. Now, you can also place some sort of baffles in the system, so the water is forced to move up and down through the system, ensuring maximum contact with the plant roots. And then at the end of the system, much cleaner water emerges after its time flowing through this big plant filter. So it's super basic, just a liner, gravel, pipes, and plants. And it's all about maximizing the contact between the water and the plant roots to get the effect of this awesome party that goes on with the microorganisms on the plant roots. Now, another really cool system is known as a living machine or an eco machine, which is used to treat black water. In this version of wetland water treatment, the water flows through a series of tanks. So for black water, it would start in a septic tank to settle out the solids. Now, this is an opportunity to collect biogas to fuel your kitchen as well. But then, from here, the water would go into another anaerobic tank, meaning a tank with no oxygen, which helps to further digest the sludge material. So from the anaerobic environment, we would then radically change the environment of the water and flow it into a tank full of plants where oxygen is actually pumped in. So there's lots of biological activity in the water. And the water would get to filter through all of those awesome plant roots like we were talking about here with the party. So the water flows into the bottom and then out the top of each.
I'm not sure the fish would be in the first tank.
Oxygen is
That's probably true. That would probably be a little bit too nitrogen rich of an environment for them. So,
Those fish.
I mean, maybe if you got the right fish, like I don't know,
Fish poop in their own water, you know.
they do.
So
So yeah,
that's what's great about the under the sea is you can poop anywhere.
that is a benefit of the
Joke
ocean.
from Harley Quinn.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
funny. But yeah, this is not so different from the concept of an aquaponics system, which I have a video on aquaponics coming up later. I think it might be the
Yeah,
next one.
but that's why I mean, like, it would be the last one. It wouldn't be
Right.
I think it would be the one right after the digestive process after the septic tank.
Right. Right.
You're not gonna feed fish with septic water.
No,
I guess the point of the first tank is that it's kind of breaking it down so it isn't just septic water, but
but
that
still,
I don't feel too great about that unless it's
Yeah.
in action and it works. So I would
Could
stand
be.
corrected.
is pumped in and where all sorts of aquatic plants and animals live. So essentially, the water is being forced through a super biologically active filter and is cleaned along the way. Now, the size of the system depends on how much water is being treated and how many days of treatment it needs to clean the water. So if each of these tanks equals the quantity of water that goes into the system each day, then the day would receive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of treatment as the water moves through the entire system from beginning to end. So
I guess that gives you an idea of how the scale would need to be for a municipality if it all has to fit an entire day's worth of water into each tank.
Right. I think that's the problem that the wetlands model above him is just for gray water. Did he
Yeah.
clarify that?
Yeah,
And
it was just gray water.
and the black water needs the tanks, which is what New York City kind of has a version of. It's massive onion dome tanks
Oh, really?
that are 50 feet high at least.
Wow.
They're massive.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And it's also an example of like the designer being like, this is, infrastructure for shit, but I've made it look pretty cool looking.
Oh, and James had a comment there in the chat. He said that cleaning sewage sounds shitty, but you don't want foul drinking water, and that's the main point. Is that if it just gets pumped straight into the river, everyone downstream from you is getting all that effluence in their water intake, and you don't want that, even if it's been chemically sterilized and stuff. It doesn't do great things for the water. But also it makes me think of there's a system in LA where they basically super filter all of the non-solid stuff, so all the urine basically, and they filter it so finely that they can turn it back into drinking water at the end of it. And I think that's for the entire city at this point because it's such an arid
They
place.
got that technology from the astronauts.
Are you joking, or did they really get that from the astronauts?
I'm pretty sure it's probably developed by NASA for that
Yeah.
purpose.
That's probably true.
It's what they use on the space station. So
Yeah. I
what
guess
they do.
you have to recycle stuff on the space station.
What was I thinking about? Oh yeah, I want to point out that I saw a working version of this that's like just for a household is not have to be big. Like each of these sections, these sections that he's drawing here, like the 5 sections, would be the size of a toilet tank.
Right.
It's because when you flush, your day's worth of shit. It's
Right.
not exactly a
It's
50-gallon
only a
drum.
few flushes. Yeah. That's a good point.
It's more like a 5-gallon drum. So
Right. So then you could just.
this woman built one in her third world of town, and it's all like under her house or something. But it's not very big. It's not very big at all. So that's just for one house. Obviously, the neighborhoods, and then it would be bigger. But yeah,
Interesting.
and city scale is what the New York City has built in Greenpoint.
And that's one of these living machines, huh?
Yeah. It's all aerobic digestion. See if I'll bring up a picture. Greenpoint, Brooklyn. I'll just send you a link to it. You can keep
You should
going.
be able to share screen right where from where you're at though. Too.
Okay.
Just go ahead and do
We're in
that.
Brooklyn.
I'll bring down my thing.
Arrow. Let's see.
James says, I had a teacher in high school that was part-time NASA, and he drank his own recycled pee and made his own deodorant. Weird little fella, but seems smart. I would hope you'd be smart if you're going to attempt that sort of stuff. And also if you're going to work for NASA.
Yeah, you can share my screen.
I think there should be a button for you to share screen as
Okay,
well.
hold on. Yeah, there we go. No.
Not working out.
Hold on.
Okay.
Let's just go full screen and then. No, that's not good either. Okay.
Okay. I'll bring that up.
They're called the digester eggs.
Wow, that's cool.
So you can see it's in Greenpoint. That's the Guadis Canal, I believe.
Oh.
So there's 8 of them there, or yeah, there's probably 8.
Probably 8, yeah. So how much of the city does this service?
I couldn't tell you.
rough,
It's not all of it, obviously.
Yeah.
It's not even probably a whole borough, but maybe North Brooklyn.
That's really cool, though. I mean, that's not, that's not that big of a footprint.
There's another. You can see how industrial it is along there.
Yeah, I see that.
Maybe it's not in the city. I'm pretty sure it is, though.
Let's
see if there's any skyline. No, but it's along. Yeah, I think it's along. That's a normal.
That's a normal.
Yeah, but they're collecting the methane from it, I guess. It is Greenpoint, though, which is in Brooklyn.
Okay.
It's a very northern part of Brooklyn.
I see. That's cool to see, though.
Okay, let's stop.
Yeah. Nice.
It was a big deal because it was being built or designed when I was going to school, or it was just finished. So it was like, this is sustainable infrastructure at its finest.
I mean, it does seem like there's some good potential to move towards this sort of a system if it works on that scale.
It is technically just a big industrial, facility like any other, but it's not chemically, or it's using aerobic digesters. So
and it's taking that methane that otherwise might just escape, and actually doing something good with it.
It would have been nice if we built something like that, but I think maybe but it's not. It wasn't in the cards. There's just not the space for it in the area that it would need to be because it is going to go in a park. So we wouldn't want that.
That would kind of dominate a park. I could imagine. Yeah.
The thing is, the stream that needs to be filtered and all that is called Beaver Creek, and there was in the park, Lincoln Park, a waterfall. It was called Buttermilk Falls. Usually because, white foamy waterfalls. But in this case, it was white because of all the pollution.
Yeah, that's what I was imagining.
From the tanneries and whatever.
Oh, gross.
And in the area that was Lincoln Park now, it used to be like where the Irish slums would, like, shack towns were built.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But this is going back to the Victorian era.
Yeah. All that layered history. That's cool.
We used to have this nice bridge on Hawk that would go over one of the valleys of the city, but it was basically removed because too many people were jumping off of it. But they couldn't build fences on it. It was odd.
So were they doing it for fun, or is this?
No, suicide.
A darker purpose. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just suicides.
That sucks.
Because it was in the age, it was pre-car as well. So maybe it also couldn't take larger vehicles, but it would have been nice to be able to walk to, but also it's almost like siege mentality because it was connecting basically the Capitol building to where the millionaires lived at the time in Arbor Hill. But after, the mid-interwar period, it goes downhill. Millionaires haven't lived there for ages. And it's almost like the bridge had to be removed to like bring up the drawbridge, so the poors aren't like able to just walk to the Capitol or something like that.
Oh, that's sad, but probably true.
But it was mostly the given reason is so many suicides. But like, why not just build fences along it? But that was like that wasn't a design option back then.
I guess, yes, before the invention of the bridge fence.
It's really this simple. Biological activity breaks down wastes and absorbs excess nutrients. There are many, many different configurations of these types of systems. So please see the resources provided in the video description down below for lots more. Here's some footage of a gorgeous living wastewater treatment wetland I visited in India. And this system handles all of the water from a hotel complex, including toilets.
Oh, yeah.
So
Wow.
the dirtiest household waste can be treated with plants and oxygen. But it's even simpler when we're treating the barely dirty water coming from showers and laundry.
Mm-hmm.
So let's check out some gray water systems.
All right.
So for the people listening, the scale that he just showed was basically the size of a backyard.
Yeah,
And
that
he
wasn't
said
that
it
big at all
serves a
for a
hotel. So he
hotel.
didn't show how big the hotel was. So like how many
Indeed,
rooms are we
yeah.
talking? But sure.
Well, that's still promising.
Because the single household is like the size of a 12 by 4 foot planter box. So when you think about it that way, then if it's like 5-6 households, then it's like the backyard, and then and that's if it's just like something along the ground. Obviously, if it's like in a big vertical tank,
Yeah.
then obviously you can. That's what the Greenpoint facility is like.
Right. Yeah.
It's these
Stack
big
it up,
100-foot tall tanks.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
To treat most gray water is for the water to contact biologically active soil. Now, the cleanest and most diluted gray water in our homes with the highest volume typically comes from the shower, bath, and laundry. The kitchen and bathroom sinks actually have pretty concentrated pollutants and may require a grease trap, so they're not really the easiest sources of gray water to recycle and may be better categorized as black water. Now you need to consider what products you're using that are going down your drain and into your gray water system. There are biodegradable cleaning products and bath products. And there are also biocompatible products. This means that there are products that will break down, biodegradable, but aren't necessarily good for plant growth, like those containing a lot of sodium, which is salt. Now, biocompatible products actually break down into elements that are beneficial for plant growth. Check the video description for a link to a suggested brand. Here's my laundry system, thriving with luscious plants, and you can see on the back of my laundry detergent, it specifies that it's gray water safe. There are so many different variations on gray water systems, but my very favorite is the branch drain gray water system that was created by a guy named Art Ludwig, and check the description below for a link. Now, the gray water is split from its source into various outlet points, and each outlet pipe flows into a bucket with the bottom cut out and holes drilled into it. So the bucket is surrounded by wood chips or other coarse mulch and has a tile on top. So all this is happening underground. The water spills out of the pipe and has a free fall to the bottom of the bucket. So there's no contact between the pipe and the soil. This is super important because one of the main risks for your system is having roots clog your pipe up. So the water spills into this chamber, and then it soaks into the wood chips, which act as a sponge. Now, around the wood chips are planted perennial plants, like trees, whose roots find their way into the wood chip sponge.
So this is all in the backyard, so you actually need your plumbing to outflow into your backyard.
Right. Yeah. You
Now, I don't know what codes allow for that.
mostly none.
Like, you
It's-
probably need a special conditional permit, I suppose, to say, I'm going to change my plumbing outflow. It's going into this proven, it will take care of it, it will clean the water. It's not illegal dumping, basically.
Mhm.
It's not dumping my waste. Because otherwise, you are skirting the water fees for the water department. You are, if you do it this way, like you don't have to pay for a water hookup. I mean, you should have to pay for a water hookup to have water, I suppose, unless it's all you use all rainwater or something.
Yeah, that'd be kind of different.
But then you're truly off grid in an
Yeah, yeah.
urban environment, and you're basically giving the finger to the water department. Because a water hookup, especially for a new construction or something, it's thousands of dollars. But that's mostly also to pay not just the water department, but to build it too, run the
Right.
pipes.
Yeah, yeah.
But otherwise, like if you didn't have the system attached to your outflow pipe, you'd basically be dumping your sewage. So you weren't. I don't know if you don't pay the water department to do that though. So I don't know. Maybe it's not a problem, but I'm just thinking of like the objections that would occur.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've only ever heard of it done just, under the radar of the city licensing bureau and whatnot.
Ask for forgiveness, not permission.
Right.
But I wonder if there have been, like with the backyard gardens or front yard gardens, if someone has had to go to court to defend doing this.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I guess they'd have to find it first and see that the violation was taking place. But
The thing is that none of this stuff was considered because it's still like it's building codes. It's not zoning codes. So like we did a reform of the zoning codes in Albany,
Sure.
and maybe your local city has done so too. But building codes are a whole different matter. And
I'm just adding some links that he left. So this is the biocompatible. Wow, that's a very long link. But that's for the biocompatible cleaners. So if you want to take a look at that.
Continual supply of water every time you take a bath. Now the wood.
Well, and also a good tree to do to pair with this would be like a willow, because willows are some of the most thirsty trees out there. There's actually huge problems with willows breaking into sewage pipes and water pipes and stuff like that. So you got to be careful about it. Careful about where
they want they really want that gray water.
They really want that gray water and the black water too. Like they'll just stick a root straight in that sewage pipe. But if you can keep it far enough away from the house and don't really have to worry about that, then yeah, they would eat up this stuff like crazy.
That's why I'm always kind of weird. Like I kind of get, I don't know, skeptical of calling like human waste this toxic substance that needs to be controlled. And I'm sure it comes from previous generational trauma with cholera or whatever.
Oh, I'm sure.
But like the fact that like, if it's put in the right place, the trees can handle it, but it needs to be distributed or it needs to be done in this fashion, decentralized, which no city infrastructure has ever done.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
How would you, how do you arrange for every few houses to basically have this system? Do you just have to pay a tax credit out to everyone to have this installed?
Yeah.
It's just, and this is just almost an anti-anarchist kind of way. It's just better and more efficient to have one big contractor build a big facility that can, digest everybody's shit.
That's what I would think. Yeah.
And
more efficient too.
And basically have a bunch of businesses have to be hired literally 1 million times to make sure everybody's covered. Every individual home or whatever is covered with this kind of system to install it, to build it for them.
Yeah.
Or otherwise, everyone has to do it themselves, and that's just not feasible unless we all basically get our weekday cut down.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Because it takes a long time to learn how to do something yourself.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, and you got to be really careful with gray water. You don't want to end up poisoning yourself or your family, or sickening them. Um,
Or
but
having a
the one
smelly
thing,
backyard.
yeah, or that too. Um, but the other thing I would wonder about with this system is what about northern climates where things are freezing solid to at least a couple feet down in the middle of the winter. So you'd probably have to have it, like this particular system would probably have to be pretty far down into the earth to keep that geothermal uh, pressure against it.
It's why I never trust a permaculturalist that lives below the 40th latitude, or from LA or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
right.
this
He teaches at OSU. He's in Oregon, so
okay.
probably not dealing with a lot of snow either there. Um,
Uh, doesn't snow in Oregon?
I mean, in the mountains and stuff like that, but I don't think like on the coast it really.
Hmm.
I don't think on the coast it really does because you got
Well,
that
anyway,
whole Pacific
you're
region.
right about how if it's a little deeper, that might be enough. But I mean,
I don't know for sure. I'm just
our
speculating.
weather's getting more extreme. When it's cold
Well,
here,
that's true.
it's going below 15,
That's true.
and a few more feet down ain't cutting that.
That's true.
It's
So, yeah,
freezing
so
solid.
what do you do on those days? Or, I mean, and that's the thing too. Like, if you had this as a block wide system, or a neighborhood wide system, you could put
It
it
would.
inside a greenhouse. Um,
It could be covered. It could be in a
right.
enclosed facility,
Right.
something like that. Even though building it alone isn't enough to stop pipes from freezing. But yeah, but passive heating, I guess, could do it. But mm,
Yeah.
it, and this is probably where you'd run into problems with local codes or trying to get this like instituted in any way
Sure.
that it doesn't. It can only work in certain climes, but maybe there's a way. I'm assuming you could just do this, but have it just more enclosed. I mean, he's doing it
Yeah,
like you're just
that's
using
true.
the tree in the backyard as the plants you're using. But I imagine, my dream home, I'm building an addition onto a row house to
Hmm.
put all of these functions that are biological that need, a greenhouse shelter,
Sure.
and including the compost toilet and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
Well, then actually, in the case of the compost toilet, you don't need this kind of. I mean, in this, your garden bed is the machine that's cleaning it and stuff. Or I guess you just have that, like I described. You just need a 10-foot by 2-foot bed
Right.
to clean the dark water, and
Hmm.
then it goes right into your garden.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, you definitely always got to be careful with putting that
Yeah.
sewage into your garden. Although if it's
Well,
if it's
that's if
clean,
it's a flush toilet.
true.
Compost toilet is literally just
That's
going into
true.
the
That's true.
hole, and it's doing the solid sitting, and then it becomes compost
Yeah. Good point.
because
Good point.
it's just aerobic. It's without air, any gases are
Anaerobic. Yeah.
going aerobic.
Hmm. All right. Let's continue on.
Wood chips buffer the hot water, and the whole area becomes super biologically active with the gray water, soil, and wood chips.
Wait, what
Now,
hot water?
eventually, these wood chips will
So if it's coming off your shower, I think is what he's
Yeah,
saying.
it's hot.
It's the
That's
hot
what I mean.
water.
That's what I assume. I just like
Yeah. That's what I would assume.
okay.
Um, I doubt your shower's ever going to get so hot that it would actually scald the roots of a tree, but I suppose it doesn't hurt to have that buffer in between.
down into soil, and all that biology cleans and feeds on the dirt from your shower, and an oasis of luxuriant perennial plants grow as a result. And it all stays underground, so there's no possible contact between people or animals and the dirty water. And you can remove the tile to check on the system and make sure it's all flowing nicely. So
Oh
that
yeah, because
is
tiles will absolutely keep any animal from getting into that. What is he talking about, man? Sometimes he says things I'm like, that's not gonna. I don't think that's working.
All it takes
All
is
kinds of varmints. I mean, I don't know why they would they probably wouldn't want to stay there, but they could get into it, and then they could go up your pipe, and then before you know it, varmint up your toilet, right up your ass. I can always see it happening. Or snakes.
Ooh.
Snakes.
Oh, that would be even worse.
Which is what happens in
It does happen.
countries where, you know, their pipes are not, you know, fully enclosed in big industrial sewage systems.
That's true. That is true. So, yeah. Thankful I don't live in those countries.
Python in my toilet.
Oh, no.
One
Seen the pictures.
super simple example. And like I said, there are hundreds of variants, but the basic principles are the same. Clean the water with biologically active soil and plants. Moderate what you put down the drain. Use woody perennials around the system. Avoid root infiltration by having air gaps. And keep it all underground so there's no human contact. And here's one more. Don't do this in the ground if you have a shallow water table. You need good soil drainage to keep the gray water below the surface. So good luck and happy wastewater harvesting.
Yeah, cool. All right, that's the end of that one.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Really a lot more to it when implementing it yourself, but yeah, that is
For sure.
it's good stuff.
Yeah, so here's the next one. It's
Now we're in another tropical climate.
yeah.
Well, he wasn't, but
Yeah, he was in more
yeah,
what would you call it? Like a
because we all live in paradise. Don't we?
I mean, we could. And if pressure
Don't
from
you
global
want-
warming keeps
Don't you want to be a colonizer?
yeah, so this guy's growing your greens. He does some great videos.
Mhm.
I will link this current one in
Oahu Adventures.
chat. Oahu Adventures. So here's aquaponics,
Okay.
and I'm gonna link the video so you all can watch it at your leisure. And there's that. So he's gonna do a pretty good overview of what aquaponics is and how it can be applied.
Have you covered aeroponics?
I have not. That would have been a good one for urban permaculture. Man.
That's where it's like you don't even use the water.
No.
It's just in the air. And I forget if it's just a matter of like you're drip feeding it things or there's
Yeah, I think it was a combination of like
spray water.
how I've seen it anyway, is you use like, plastic Coke bottles and stuff like that. And that becomes your pot, and you stick it up against your window, and then you use a pretty simple air pump like you get for like a home fish tank, and you use that to push little bits of water through the system, and that's how you do it.
Yeah.
And then you can get.
But it has to be like enriched water to replace
Yeah.
soil.
So it either has to be like hydroponics, where you get the bottled
Mhm. You have to buy
minerals or whatever.
bottled mineral water.
Yeah, just put some
More
mineral water in.
plastic. More plastic.
Or you could hook it up to like a very small fish tank of some kind and circulate that water too. But yeah, here's aquaponics though. Combination of hydroponics and aquaculture. Oh, and I have it muted. Because it's
Good more music.
more music. Gotta avoid the music.
This is Joe and Cola with GrowingYourGreens.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you, and we're here in Hawaii, on Oahu actually. And today we have a special episode for you guys, all about aquaponics, man. I'm excited for this episode, actually, to share with you guys this place here. Actually, and this place is actually called the Aquaponics Place. This is a store that specializes in aquaponics, all the different parts you'll need for aquaponics, the plants, the fish, the different, tubs.
Oh, this would be a great advertisement if I lived on Oahu.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone call up Zuck.
Oh, that's right. From that one video we watched about how he's buying up all of Hawaii for
Did.
God knows why, but
It's vacation home.
basically, yeah.
He should just buy an island of Fiji like the crypto bros are doing.
Yeah, I'm surprised old Zuck isn't on that crypto train already.
He doesn't have to be. I mean,
Well,
Meta
he's got
is
more,
the crypto.
more money than.
What do you think the
Willow.
crypto train is going to? It's going to Meta. Anyway, that's a side thing. We're talking about nature and having something that isn't an economy based on digital cyberpunk future.
Yeah, not based on financial hot potato where you just try to get the last person to take on the product.
System in your home so that you.
Oh, were you gonna say something there?
No. Oh, just Chopper Trap Out mentioned like this is just like pets.com. But also like pointing out that Super Bowl ads, context of Super Bowl ads, that like the predominant Super Bowl ads kind of tell the like where American culture is going in the next few years, and or where it is.
Yeah.
And so just before the .com bubble burst, the big Super Bowl ad was pets.com. And other .coms, where or sites that's like, oh, what are you investing in? You're just investing in the potential of the internet, this new thing, the internet, internet too, and then of course, then it was housing after that or whatever, and then the other thing was the electric cars. You know, oh, electric cars are cool now and available. And that was one of the predominant ads, and the other one this year was crypto ads, and it was real sickening. But also, I watched the first quarter of the Super Bowl, so I actually did get to see the ad that was just the QR code bouncing around like an old screensaver.
Oh,
and
seriously?
It went on for
low effort, huh?
I think low effort. Well, the simple ads are best, right?
I guess that's memorable.
But like, I think it went on for almost a full minute, and so like they're blowing millions of dollars on that, and I'm sitting there with like older people, and they were just like aghast at like, what the hell is this? And anyway,
I can't even imagine how they view the world and all the changes. Ugh. Anyway, let's continue.
You can start growing your own food today. You know, especially here in the island, it's very important to, have a backup plan in case the ship doesn't come in, to be able to grow your own food. And as much as I like growing food in the soil and the dirt, the red dirt here, aquaponic systems are great because now instead of just having vegetables, you can also grow your own fish. Whether you want to keep fish as pets or whether you want to have them as a food source, they could grow a lot of fish and a lot of vegetables to eat, a fairly well-balanced diet. So anyways, what we're going to do today is we're going to go into the aquaponics place, share with you guys what exactly aquaponics is if you don't know about it, and share with you some of the components of the system, share with you guys the fish that they offer here, and share with you guys some pre-made and pre-built systems you can actually buy and bring home anywhere here on Oahu. So we're here inside the aquaponics place, and if you guys are an aquaponics geek, this is your hangout, man. They got like all these different valve things and siphon things.
I mean, if you don't mind putting a whole lot of plastic into your system, then sure, yeah, I guess that would be your place.
What would you use instead?
Oh, there's tons of things you can do.
As an aquaponics nerd, not
as
an
aquaponics nerd, yes.
Not a geek.
Not a geek, no. I guess I'm not sure what the difference is, but
oh, you don't. It's a good difference. Geeks care about stuff. Nerds care about ideas.
Okay, I guess definitely a nerd then.
That's the difference mainly.
But yeah, I the way I would do an aquaponic system would be more based on wood, where you couldn't use wood in places like where you need to pipe the water or something like that. It would be more stainless steel pipes rather than plastic, especially like PVC. Because whatever plastic you put in there, it's going to leach stuff over the course of its lifetime. And it's also going to break down, especially if it's a very sunny system. That plastic photodegrades. So the more you can get the plastic out, just the more long-term sustainable it is. Yeah. And,
It takes energy to, make metal. But if it is steel, it's consistently... It's right. Stainless steel is basically like the prime material for things that should be would be plastic otherwise.
Yeah, they come in contact with water continuously. Yep. So, yeah, that would be where I would be geeking out, is the metal pipe store or something like that. But, yeah, most aquaponics are heavily invested in the plastic infrastructure. So,
Yes, aluminum is high embodied energy, so no aluminum.
yeah. Also, there's certain plants and animals that don't do well with aluminum too. So, like especially like microbes and stuff can be killed by it. Yeah. So that's the other thing about the stainless steels. It tends to be pretty inert when it comes to its interactions with
iron. It's
living
solid.
things. Yeah.
Neutral.
And they got all kinds of fittings. They got basically everything you need to do aquaponics at home. I mean, even on the mainland, a store like this is just unheard of. I've never seen a store dedicated to aquaponics. I think there should be a store like this in every city across the nation so that people can start actually growing their own food. And it makes it easy for people to get all the supplies and parts, fittings, all this stuff, because normally you have to go around to like 5 stores, maybe a plumbing store, a hardware store, a swimming pool store, and a pond store to get all the different things to get a system together.
I'm just going to skip
And this
forward.
is simply a fish tank and holding fish.
Did I start a aquaponics store in my city?
Hey, sounds like there's the potential. There actually
There's
was
so
one
many-
in
There's
my
so many
hometown.
business ideas
Yeah.
that obviously are missing in my area, and it's just a matter of having the startup capital.
Yeah.
But I suppose a big business loan to buy the equipment that this guy's out laying out.
Yeah.
But I would want to be a master at first, and what am I a master of?
I don't know. What are you? You're master of organizing, I would say, probably. Probably
Yeah.
have quite a bit of knowledge in that.
But again,
Yeah.
that's for the career. That's the career after 40, basically. After 40 is when I basically start some business.
Well, hey, I guess I got a couple years to go then, and I should be starting a business of my own. So.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying 40 because that's when I'll probably be done with state work.
Oh, okay. So in your particular case, got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Unless something really changes and it's like I have to do the 30-year program.
Uh-huh.
But I just don't gotta do that. No intention.
Makes sense.
It took me 8 years just to get a permanent civil service position. But I did a lot of different stuff in the meantime. It's not like I was just waiting for life to begin. But in some ways I was, I'm not like I've put dating and communal living on the back burner because it's like I wanted my own stability first. Anyway, let's keep going.
Makes sense. So here's the basic aquaponics setup. I guess hopefully he'll kind of lay it out.
It's kind of big though, so
yeah, this is a big setup for sure.
I'm not sure that it would be popular enough to just have a store that could just sell that stuff. But I suppose if Oahu, with what's the population on that island? I mean, it's a big. That has Honolulu on it, right?
No. Oh, yes, it does. Yeah, you're right.
So
yeah, probably the most popular, maybe the most populous island. I don't know how the Big Island would compare to it, but
maybe also because it's isolated, everyone actually does want to grow their own food and can because of the climate.
Well, and that's the main thing is you can do it year round. So yeah, there was an aquaponics store in my hometown. I think it finally went under. They seem to kind of pop up once in a while, but they just can't quite find enough clientele to keep them going because it's like he just showed in that store. It's a lot of inventory you got to keep on hand, and these are big parts, especially when you're stocking like the tubs. Got to rent the space, and like if you're only getting in a few people every day, it's not an easy business to keep up.
If you diversify and do 3 different things, like it's an overall gardening store. Permaculture store or whatever. You sell all the material for gardenings and whatever, but again, you're commodifying something that should be really easy and cheap.
Sure.
But
that's a point too. Yeah. All right. Continuing on here.
That you can't eat or just keep as pets. and then what happens is the fish are living in the fish tank, and they're getting fed with the fish food, which is the only input in this system. The fish eat the fish food, and then guess what? They create waste, much like us, right? The fish make the pee and the poop, and then that basically gets in the water, and then what they do is
pee and the poop.
The pee and the poop.
You couldn't just say excrement or waste.
No,
I mean,
you
was
just
he calling
gotta
it
lay
waste?
all
Yeah, okay. So fish food, is there like a is that something you have to buy, or is there like a natural replacement for that you could put in the tank and the fish would eat it?
I'm glad you brought that up, because going back to those black soldier fly larvae that I had talked about earlier, that's actually a really good fish food. They're really high in fat and protein, and so and they're also self harvesting. So it's kind of cool. The way that you see like a normal home setup is you just take one of those 5-gallon buckets, you put your compost in there, the flies naturally come in and they smell it, and they lay their eggs there. And then all around the inside of the bucket, you have a ramp, because when those larvae gorge themselves and they're about to go find some place to dig in and pupate, they will search all around and they'll find that ramp. They'll climb all the way up the ramp, and then you can, divert them.
Goes in the water.
Collection thing. You can divert it straight into the water. That's true. And it's a really great fish food. So you can take food waste and turn it into, you can just cycle it back through the system and make it into fish food. You can also do that with, there's a particular type of, I think it's an aquatic fern. I can never remember the name. It's like Azola or something like that. I'll have to look up the name of it. But there's this aquatic floating fern. And then there's also duckweed. That's another good source. And that you can take that stuff and feed it directly, and a lot of fish will eat that stuff too. So
you can grow the plants that they would eat.
Right. Yeah.
I'm thinking, because it's like, okay, well, if you have a pond with fish in it, obviously you don't have to put in little like kelp flakes to feed them. Yeah, you could just have kelp in there, I suppose, couldn't you?
Sure. Yeah, why not? I mean,
kelp is edible too, so but I guess it shouldn't be in the water with the fish. But
I don't know. I don't know if
probably could.
Kelp.
I mean, obviously. Oh, true.
I don't know.
Well, no, there's definitely freshwater kelp.
Oh, is there? Okay.
I guess maybe it's just not kelp, but there's definitely lake and marsh, not marsh, but like in lakes.
Like lake weed sort of things.
Yeah. I guess it's more weed, but I mean, I don't know how edible it is actually, but
but I mean, he's right in that no matter what, if you're taking nutrients and plants in the form of plants and fish out of the system, you got to replace it somehow. But like if you're using food waste from another source, then hey, that's kind of free inputs to your system. And otherwise, I know a lot of aquaponics growers do just use fish food, and it's like the pellet stuff, and they'll throw it out there. So it's not, it's not without its environmental impacts itself, but
sure.
But the idea is to cycle the nutrients more and get a harvest from them.
In my recent show where I covered food issues, I covered the first half is like vegan stuff, and as well as just talking about meat-free diets. I did discuss a social ecology, the Institute site, and it was an essay, a very deep philosophical essay about animal rights, and basically saying like animal rights is very well, it's bourgeois. It's based on bourgeois values of extending human rights to animals, and that's really not workable with systems like this, where like you're talking about harvesting fly larvae, just marching them into the water to be eaten by fish, or, you're making a machine of death. And,
I mean, I don't know how do vegans feel about that? Like it, there's certain animals like cats and stuff for sure that need to have
right. And it's about drawing the line of like what gets rights and what doesn't. But
right.
But it's like also speaking from a liberatory, like, animal liberation. White people don't decide when others are liberated. or have rights.
Mm-hmm.
Rights are gained by the oppressed. And
That makes sense.
but at the same time, we shouldn't whip horses, and beat them to death. So obviously, there's more to talk about. But the guy mostly focuses on, like, if you have an ecological outlook, you don't need to talk about these animal rights, and other bourgeois value things, because you're just kind of focusing on how ecosystems work and how they work together. And they're most beneficial when, or they work when you're not exploiting other things. And there's obviously a big gap between exploiting animals and using animals, or having animals.
Yeah.
Or even eating animals. But it's also using the indigenous argument, relying on indigenous cultures and saying, like, you're going to tell, like, the South American tribe they can't eat the chicken.
Right.
That's part of their ecosystem.
Right.
It's not it's just focusing on, like, look, if you hate industrial farming, as we all should, we hate that. We don't hate, all animal and meat eating. But obviously, I'm not shedding any kind of tear or having any empathy for an industrial meat system. And then when the price of meat goes up because of cost and ecological damage and everything, and the steak is now $50, I'm just going to shrug and go, like, what the hell do you expect?
Right.
If we just cut meat, like beef consumption, we would use half the farmland that we currently use.
Right. Well, and the biggest part of that too is the corn subsidy that goes in to feed the beef. So much beef is just corn fed. If you limited grain subsidies right there, that would go a long way to solving the problem of meat being the cheapest thing on the menu.
But just the fact that even now it's like, just because it goes up a few dollars, and this is like hyperinflation and so on, and this is hurting families, and we need to keep meat cheap, and whatever. But meatless, I mean, it's like, whether you want to or not, meatless, the meatless future is going to come, whether or not it has to be replaced by fake meat or test tube meat or whatever. I think it's just more like it's the luxury that it should be, or just like with all this other stuff we're discussing, you do it yourself, and it's going to be you got to be eating a lot less meat when it's just the 20 chickens, and you're not going to eat a chicken every goddamn week or every other day, a whole chicken.
That's true.
Or the amount that adds up to a whole chicken. Yep.
Yeah, that whole industry is so propped up by petroleum products. From the fertilizer and pesticides for the grain to just
the so-called green revolution.
Yeah. So, yep.
Okay.
But that's interesting. I'll have to go back and check out that episode of yours there. I hadn't listened to that one yet. So,
water, and they pump it up into this top bed, and in this top bed, they pump the water up, and then the water filters through this rock here, the cinder, and it basically filters down and then goes back in and then comes back out and sprays back into the tank there. You can see.
Sorry, is it rock or is it cinder?
I don't know why he said cinder. I think
because it's black. Cinder, like charcoal or something.
It's not charcoal though. It looks like what do you call it? Like,
it also looks underplanted. Like you could fit a lot more in there.
Oh yeah, you could definitely pack that in for a bunch. But yeah, the mediums you usually use are, what I think is the best is the clay balls. They call it hydroton, and they don't compact as much because they're orb shaped. They can't lock together like gravel can. And then they also have just a whole lot more.
Oh, that's the water goes through, right?
Yeah, because with these systems you have constant draining, so there's constant suction happening that goes into that's pulling on the bed, and it can compact things over time. You can mitigate that by putting worms in there as well, like the red wiggler worms.
Does it have to be suction, and it couldn't just be gravity fed?
It can, but a lot of them. So you get better results if you're fluctuating the water level, and one of the easiest ways to do that is to have a siphon in there. So when it gets up to a certain level, it triggers the siphon, and then it sucks everything down really quick. And then you have that gas exchange at the root level, and it just helps kind of goose the whole system. It grows a lot better.
How often does that happen? Like
it really depends on the system,
Yeah.
and it depends on how you set it. But
once a day, once a week.
it's probably going to be more like once an hour, I would say,
Once an
or once
hour.
every few hours. It depends on how big the bed is too,
Yeah.
how quickly it fills up. So that's one way that people do it. You can do it differently, where you have you can fluctuate the pumping instead. So you can have the
So I
pump.
feel like if you use a
cycle on.
if you use a hand pump so
Yeah.
that you're not burning electricity.
Yeah, or a wind pump too. You could just hook it up directly to like a
Yeah, I
windmill.
guess.
And just have and that would give you the natural fluctuation just with the wind, so you'd have the raising and lowering that way too.
Okay.
Or
Doesn't
you,
have to be controlled by a trigger
right,
sensor,
right. But you can just put your pump on a timer so that like every 3 hours it cycles on, fills up the tank, and then slowly drains out, and then you get less compaction that way too. But I prefer that like I said, the Hydroton. I don't know if they're going to show
Why
that.
why did James say space dildo rocket?
I think we were talking about Bezos earlier. We must
Oh.
have been.
But that's no. We were talking about Musk
Oh, Musk.
or Zuck. We were mentioning Bezos.
I don't know. I'm sure they'll all have their version of a space dildo at some point.
Yeah. The future is it just can't be in physical Earth reality. And it either has to be on the cyber reality or space.
Yeah.
Which is why cyberpunk is always like, it's not only just like with cyber reality, but on a space station or
Yeah.
an asteroid, like our current sci-fi.
Yep. And that's what Bezos wants to do is put all us working class out into space, so we can we'd send all the heavy industry, all the stuff, and then Earth will just be a paradise for the rich to enjoy.
I particularly like sci-fi where it doesn't have to take place in a far future, but it just depicts a future on Earth, and it isn't technologically dependent. Meaning, the plot or the how things work.
It's not just focused on like the whiz bang stuff. Of flying cars and
right. If anything, it's like it's a future civilization that is just like any other civilization with the same mix. It's a mix of culture and technology and things. But like I'm referring to what's coming to mind is an anime called Gargantua on a Verdant Earth.
I've never heard of that one.
It's not a popular one. But it's basically short version. It's what if Waterworld was good?
Okay.
But instead of being a search for land, there is still land, but no one cares because it's not enough land to worth using. So human societies live on not just one big tanker, but like a flotilla that are locked together of ships. So it's a floating city of several thousand, and these like a bunch of tankers are just their growing fields, and a number of tankers are just their like fresh water supplies from rain collection, and the others are just like kind of more like favela housing, and and it's got a lot of cool other sci-fi stuff, but basically what occurred was, there was there were multiple reactions and solutions to climate change, which in the case of this show, it was ice age. And so as the descendant, because this is very far in the future, like, many, many hundreds of thousands of years, she says like, oh, like we were an ice planet, and then our minds basically caused global warming to melt everything, and it it accelerated, and thus now Earth is a water world. So they basically flow with the ocean, the currents, to basically fish, and they have their own salvage industry of pulling things up from the bottom It's not like, in Water World where it's just the special guy can pull things up from the bottom. No, they have got a whole like cottage industry of it, bringing stuff up. And what's really cool is like, they have records and things, so it's like they're not totally clueless about how things are and how things got to how they are, but it's very ecologically themed.
Interesting. That sounds really cool. Yeah, if you have a link to that, you should put that up in the chat if you're able to.
I'll see if I can find it. I think I watched it via Netflix, or
okay.
I'll see if Hulu has it. But it's on the streaming sites, or you find it where you find other anime.
Okay, very cool. What was the name again? One more time.
Gargantua on a Virgin Earth. So I'll just do a search, and then I'll put the link.
All right.
Although I don't think I have chat working right now. I don't.
Okay. Well, you can send it to me. I can pop it in chat.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep playing the video because I am coming up on only about 20 minutes left of time tonight. Right. So I'm going to try to get through as much of this as possible.
And what the plants do is the plants actually filter the fish pee and poop and put it back into the water. So that's the simplified version. We're going to talk about in a little while the more complex version and how this system and why this system really works. It's actually there's one big linchpin that many people may not be aware about in an aquaponics system that we'll cover in just a little bit. So next we're going to show you guys some of the different edibles that you can grow in an aquaponic system to feed you and your family. All right, so in this system, we got a couple cool things.
I'm sure you could grow that too, actually.
Soybeans, yes, you can grow soybeans in an aquaponic system. They got some little kales right there. In addition, some mizuna, one of my favorite leafy greens, especially to grow in the winter time. Also, the lettuces. Of course, the lettuces will do well in an aquaponic system, but they can't be in full sun. They like it a little bit shady. Let's see here. In addition, they got some of my favorite. This is the shiso, or also known as perilla, and this is the purple shiso. I grow this in my garden every year, and evidently it'll do well under aquaponics. In the cinder right here, check it out. This basically acts like a biofilter.
So I think it's usually like granite chips or slate chips or something like that. I don't know why he's calling it cinder, but that's not the right term.
And this cinder actually, unlike other medias that can be used for the aquaponics, have a lot of surface area. They're literally like little sponges. In addition, it looks like they got a little tomato over there and a whole bunch of chives growing in this bed. So in this aquaponics system here, they got a whole bunch of strawberries that are currently in the greenery or leafing stage. They're seasonal, so they're not producing berries at this time. In addition, they have a nice large eggplant that's been there a while. And also they're growing lilikoi or passion fruit that's kind of growing out of the aquaponics system over and over and over and up the chain link fence. So I think it'd be great one day when they have all this filled in with lilikoi or passion fruit with hanging fruits to eat.
I'm growing that same thing in my living room right now. It's reached up to my ceiling.
All that car parking right there isn't going to help.
yeah, all that car
air wise, but
right.
I guess it's not like the runoff will affect the tanks, but
true. But yeah.
And also showing the massiveness of the plant after it's been grown a while in the aquaponics system. Other plants that can be grown in aquaponics are something like this. The basil looks like it's doing quite well. They also have some parsley here. And besides the parsley, they got the red Russian kale, one of my favorite varieties of kales right here. In addition, they got the green Malabar spinach. So I like the purple Malabar spinach, but they got the green Malabar spinach. It was planted maybe about a month ago. It's doing really excellent. This is definitely one of my picks for what I would grow in the aquaponic system because the Malabar spinach is what's called a perennial edible vegetable. You know, some vegetables and some...
During the George Floyd uprising, there was a restaurant that got burned down. And they had a huge aquaponic system in their basement, and it was all under grow lights. That was the only light, but they did Malabar spinach, and it just took over. Like it was covering every square inch that it could find. It covered over. So that's cool, and it's cool that it's a perennial too. So it just keeps on throwing out leaf after leaf after leaf.
They were growing spinach in a basement?
Yeah, they had an aquaponic system, much like the one that we're looking at. Yeah,
They
it
didn't
was,
have a yard to do it in or something.
I mean, it was a pretty small restaurant. So they did like bees and other stuff on the rooftop, and then they just had their aquaponic system in the basement for whatever reason. But it was cool. It was my favorite Indian restaurant too, so I was sad when that burned down. I'm assuming they'll open up at some point again, but you know, COVID hit not like at that same time, so I'm sure they were already struggling.
And you're
but
not a anti-BLM yes, for this?
yeah, for taking my restaurant from me. Yeah, I have
Indian
no
restaurant.
idea how it was that particular block got burned down. It was right near the police station that got burned down, so it could have
Okay,
just been that in all that mayhem, people
sure.
were just going wild. But I
Yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
I
We
don't
don't
quite
have
know.
to. We don't have to relitigate that.
Yeah.
I'm just. My mind will just flash back to my health aid client who has a media diet of right wing propaganda, and
Oh,
she's insufferable because she's just so like it's not confidence, just like
oh, I know what
forthright
you
about
mean.
like this is who I am, this is what I believe, and
Yeah.
I try to like interrogate like, are you sure? Like the sources you're using, they're just rich people lying
Just
to you,
garbage. Yeah.
and
Uh-huh.
she doesn't process when I say that's a lie or that's
Mm-hmm.
lying, it's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
Because she just has these emotional biases. But
Yeah.
interesting fact I learned that the right wing propaganda that doesn't seem to get shared on LeftTube is the story that Justin Trudeau is the love child of Fidel Castro.
I heard that one. I saw
I
one of
never.
those face morph things that
Uh-huh.
gradually brings it over, and it's like, oh, look at how the chin lines up perfectly.
Well, she was saying like what, and I was saying like, what is the evidence? What's the reason? Like, what's the evidence of this? Like, well, his mother went to Cuba,
Oh,
and in the
what more do you
there are
need?
documents showing she went to Cuba
What more do you need?
for a month. And I'm like, so the only thing she could have possibly done there was
Sleep.
bang Fidel. Well, he is a ladies' man. You know, does have, he's a lover.
That's
But
hilarious.
it's like that's what makes Trudeau evil. It's not just that he's a shit lib.
Yeah. Oh, you always
Um,
gotta do that.
he has to have a link to communism, just like
Yeah.
how what makes CRT bad, as I constantly, incessantly asked her, what is CRT and why is it
Yeah.
bad? She could only
Communist.
relate that it's bad because it was written by Maoists. And I'm like,
Yeah.
but what is it? It's like it
Uh-huh.
teaches people to hate others. It makes people, just repeating, the right wing
Yeah.
propaganda. And I
Real
just like,
baseline bullshit. Yeah.
I just can't listen to you.
At some point, you gotta move on with your life. Pick your battles elsewhere.
Some plants actually go through their life cycle, like the lettuce or like the kales. But with this guy, this will continue to grow and keep putting on food for you, so you can eat day after day, year after year, without having to, continually replant like you do with the lettuce. Over next door here, we got things like the more basil. And look at this. This basil's been growing here a while, and this basil straight up has like woody stems on it. It's quite old, doing quite well, although it looks like it does have some scale on there that they may want to do
That's
some
big.
with.
That's some
But
big
doing quite
basil.
well. And
It's a big
nice and
basil.
tall there.
It's
In
a
addition, they got the
basil.
callow or the taro here, which is also grown in the
Taro's a good
aquaponic
one.
system. In addition, they got a few beets over there and some rosemary. And one of my favorite things to grow in Hawaii for sure.
Maybe it'd be easier to
is
list
this
what
guy
you
right
can't
here.
grow in aquaponics.
I mean, from what I understand, I think grain is the hardest thing to grow. Although you can do rice, and you can do wild rice too.
Well,
But
obviously, rice grows in water.
right. So they're pretty natural allies. But like corn probably would not do too well. I think you would just get overwhelmed with the water.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
let's see. Is it because corn has short roots, right?
Yeah, it's pretty short roots, which
Wheat,
is
wheat too.
wheat
Yeah.
would probably be difficult to do, and also you wouldn't get that much out of it. I mean, you have to do these at scale to really get
So
much of a harvest. So
flax, I suppose, wouldn't work either.
yeah, I don't know. But yeah, most things will work in an aquaponic system because you're cycling the water so much that the roots are never getting so waterlogged that most of them will rot or anything.
Yeah.
and they're just constantly getting fed that nutrient. So
This is the okra. Look at those little babies, man. Fresh okra. Okra is absolutely delicious, and I love eating them, especially when they're young and baby. So over to this bed, a few more things they are growing. Things like celery right here, definitely looking really nice and vibrant here. Also, they got this plant. Look at this guy. I mean, this guy is a nice woody
we'll skip
stalk,
ahead just
really
a little bit
thick.
because yeah, it's
An
just, we get it.
experiment,
You
because
grow a
that's what
lot.
This is all about, to see what you could get away with. Of course, some plants are going to do better than others, and of course that depends on, you know, how big your system is, how well it's draining or not draining, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Also, how much sun you're getting or how much sun you're not getting. Very important factors to consider when selecting the different vegetables and herbs to grow in your system. Now, besides just the leafy greens, and you guys know that I'm all about my leafy greens, my show's called Growing Your Greens, and I want to encourage you guys to eat like 2 pounds of leafy greens a day. You know, they are one of the healthiest foods on the planet, the most nutrition with the least amount of calories. As you guys know,
2
standard American
pounds?
food, fast food, junk food is very high in.
I mean, to get your 1,500 calories a day, you pretty much would have to eat 2
okay.
pounds of greens
Yeah.
if you're getting it from the greens.
Okay. Yeah. Right. Especially the beans.
Yeah. Different trade-off there with the beans, of course.
Calories with low nutrition. The greens are very high in nutrition. Another thing that's actually very, very good in nutrition for the calories specifically and for the protein are the fish here. So whether you want to grow your fish and eat them or whether you want to have them as pets, you can definitely do that in the aquaponics system. In just about 10 months on average, and it depends on the size of your tank and how much you're feeding them and whatnot, your fish, the tilapia here, will grow into full size so that you can catch them and eat them. I think for fun, we're going to go ahead and go fishing, see if I can catch a fish here. I think you got to be pretty quick if you get one of these suckers. Not that quick. All right, try number 2. Let's see if I can. I got a strategy this
Couldn't
time.
get it, so we got it for try.
All right, check it out. I caught a fish, but I'm going to be nice. Fish belong in the water. We're going to let them go. I mean, I think if I had...
This is literally the expression "fish in a barrel."
Pretty much. Yeah, except for it's not so easy for him. So maybe that saying is not as wise.
Hey, wiggle around.
Yeah, tilapia is the most common fish that people grow in these systems because they grow so fast. They're not necessarily the most nutritious fish, though. But you can grow all kinds of stuff. You can do catfish.
They're $3 a pound
Yeah.
at the supermarket.
Yeah. So
Catfish are also pretty cheap.
right.
Absolutely love at supermarket I worked at. They would fry the fish on request.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would just fry it for you, like right there. And the catfish nuggets were only like $2.50 a pound.
Ooh.
So I would just get
Good
a
eating.
pound of fried catfish nuggets, and it's complimentary. So it's just like I'm just paying $3 for
Nice.
this like container of like fried catfish nuggets, and of course I wouldn't eat all at once, but
Yeah, I
it
would
was
hope
like
not.
fucking great.
That sounds amazing. I love catfish. Is one of my favorite fishes.
I have to go back
just
there
something about it.
eventually.
That's awesome.
I have to
All
take a
right.
bus out.
Let's see how much more we can get through tonight.
Aquaponics here, I mostly grow the fish for my pets, instead of eating them. I got enough greens to get enough protein, a lot of other nutrients in the garden, besides the fish personally. All right, so now that you guys saw what you potentially could grow, the plants and the fish, we're gonna kind of dive more in and explain how exactly an aquaponic system works. And the different methods of growing. They have 2 different kind of setups here. They have like basically a system that has just like a basically flood and drain. It kind of floods it and then it drains it. And they basically just have a system where they're constantly feeding it water. And the system that you choose to have is going to be dependent on the plants you're growing. So for example, some crops can be grown in the system where the roots are constantly in water, such as the lettuce or such as watercress. Whereas most plants are not going to like that level of water and have the roots wet all the time. They need to get proper aeration. So there needs to be like a flood and drain system where the roots aren't constantly staying wet. So now we're going to go ahead and show you guys both those different systems and how they do it here at the aquaponics place. So this is the first system we're gonna share with you guys, and this is the easiest system to make. If you think of like your bathtub, right? If you fill up your bathtub with water and then it gets too high, it has that overfill valve, right? So you can never overflow your bathtub and it won't like leak on your bathroom floor. Well, this system, growing a lettuce, you know, in constant water, it works pretty much the same way. So what many systems use is they may use like some kind of raft system, and they generally put this on like some kind of styrofoam, but they choose not to use the styrofoam here because those styrofoam beads will break off, get into the water, contaminate your system. So they actually have a nice piece of plastic here. And let's go ahead and lift this guy up. So what's happening here is that water is getting pumped in over on this side. And if you look on the back side, I don't know if you could see that there, but there's basically like that overfill drain on your bathtub that's sucking the water in. So the water never overflows, but always stays a constant height.
The technical name, by the way, is a stand pipe. It's just a pipe that's set straight up, so when the water gets up to that level, it starts flowing in. So just for anyone, if you hear that word, that's what that means.
The water is kind of being a little bit aerated just due to the flow of the water.
It's nice not have to take 5 minutes to explain like a simple, like a piece.
Yeah.
Something.
He definitely likes to explain stuff.
You can see in these little net pots they have here, these little lettuces are growing root hairs out, and in these net pots, the plants are just set in the cinder, and that's actually just to hold the soil.
Now, when you do this, do you have a seed start first, and you put that in these containers? So it's like
that's usually how it's done. You have a
put the
really
in the water, right?
Yeah, you don't usually sprout them in the water itself. You sprout it in a sprouting tray, and then you just transplant into these sorts of things in that sort of a system. Yeah.
But these lettuces will grow really well like this. Another thing that will grow well like this also is the watercress that likes to have its roots wet. So now we're going to show you the second kind of system they have here. This is a system that actually drains out the water and actually drains it fairly fast so that the roots are not staying wet, because most plants do not like their roots wet. They will succumb to root rot, possibly other diseases if you do that, and that's all made possible with this guy right here. It's actually called a bell siphon. And how this works is very simple. We're gonna go ahead and give you guys a close-up to show you exactly how this works. All right, so how this system works is we got a grow bed with all the little cinders in here, and then they got this little kind of mesh thing that does not allow the cinders to go in, and then they have their overflow tube, much like the other overflow tube in the lettuce bed. So when the water level that's getting pumped into this bed gets high enough, which it's almost there now, what's going to happen is the water level is going up, and if we pull these rocks back here, you can see the water level right here is getting higher and higher and higher. And if we just let it get this high and go into the overflow tube, which is almost going to reach in a minute, it's always going to stay at that level. Now this is what happens exactly in the lettuce bed. The water level always stays at a certain level, and it's almost overflowing now. And it's just about overflowing now, so check it out. You can see the water running over the top into the tube there, which then returns the water to the fish tank down below. And now you
I guess this is as close as he's willing to get to it.
The water always at this constant level. So what this guy does, which is the bell siphon valve, it basically creates a vacuum or a suction to pull the water faster than it would just normally drain out. So for example, the water's draining out here, but it's never going to go below this exact level that you're seeing. Now this is the standard bell siphon that they offer here. Just looks like that. It's basically some PVC with the cap on the top, and they put some little holes on the bottom, you know, in a nice shape. But actually they have a cool one, which is for display purposes only, which actually has a clear top on it. So I don't know if you'll be able to see this on the camera, but what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and put this guy over the drain tube, and once again it has cutouts on the bottom. We're going to put that over the top, and I don't know if you guys could look in there, but what's happening is this is creating a massive suction, and look at this water draining out very quickly, right? This water is draining out very quickly, so now the roots are not sitting in a constant water supply so that they will not get the root rot. And it's this special siphon that siphons the water out until it's all siphoned out, and then basically it'll slowly fill up again until it's full. When it gets full again, then it siphons all the water out fast again. So this way you're getting basically a drain and flow without any additional appliances or electricity or anything. It's all happening on suction. This is definitely an
You have to
ingenious
place
way
that down.
to make.
Is that it?
What's that?
You have to actually place that down for it to
Yeah,
work.
yeah, you have to put the bell over it for the suction to happen. It's similar to how like a toilet works. So, you know, the water flows up over a certain point in a toilet, and then just the suction of it flowing over pulls the rest of it with it. So it's just creating the same sort of thing. I had one in my home system when I had a very small system running, and it worked pretty well. But yeah, there's definitely
You just have to do it every few hours.
Yeah. I ended up just putting my pump on a timer, and I found that worked better anyway, because the siphon didn't always work. Like I didn't have all the I don't know what you call it, the mathematics worked out for, pipe size versus siphon size and stuff like that. I kind of screwed around with it, but yeah, as I said earlier, the big drawback of this is that all that suction happening so quickly, it really compacts the growing medium. So it can make the system not work as well.
Make this happen. And then it's just kind of cool to look at the water as it's working in there and see like if it's sucking or if it's thing or if there's air bubbles or it's suck air or what, man. Definitely so cool. Let's go ahead and put this guy back up so this can continue to work how it should. So you guys just learn what you can grow, then you learn how to do it or the two ways you can accomplish this. Next, I want to get in more to the nitty-gritty, the bare bones of how the aquaponics system works.
Well, we're almost out of time, but basically,
I'm about to ask you to wrap up.
Yeah. What he's going to say is that it's not as though the fish waste just gets sucked up by the plant roots. The bacteria that lives in that grow bed breaks it down. I can't remember if it turns from nitrate to it's different forms of nitrogen it gets broke down into by the bacteria. It puts it into a bioavailable form for the plants to act as fertilizer. So that's the third component of it. It's the bacteria, the plants, and the fish. That's your 3 parts of an aquaponics system. But I think we pretty much got the basics of how aquaponics works and what its potential is. But you don't have to use plastic for all the stuff. You could switch it out for metal or wood or other more. I've seen it with bamboo as well.
Bamboo, that would work. Clay pipes.
Clay pipes, sure. Clay pipes would work really well too.
Fire clay.
Yeah, you could use clay for the ponds as well. So yeah. But
primitive.
Got a lot of potential.
Yeah, the primitive tech YouTube channels. I think, did they make clay pipes? Some of them probably did.
Yeah, I wonder. But that'd be a cool thing to see for sure. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for tonight.
I wanted to plug something
that
could be a potential reading series for us. Actually I'd be reading it, you'd be reacting. So I bought from the 50s an action course in practical politics, and it's a series of 8 pamphlets.
Okay.
So it's literally already subdivided in the topics. And although this is bread theory and not bread practice, I think it's important for us as leftists to actually learn and discuss the actual mechanics of doing politics.
Absolutely.
So obviously, we can naysay about how we're doing it wrong by just posting or making media as individuals. I think we go a long way if we, as creators, created an organization from which popular creators, instead of everyone just being a stall at a flea market almost, collecting dues from people, Vosh could share his, subscriber base with those that are small.
He could.
And in that way, it could, let's say, hypothetically speaking, if we view Debate Bros as a necessary evil, let their success or the entertainment creators fund the vegetables, of the diet of the leftist,
I like it.
or whatever. And but anyway, the back to the practical course action, practical politics. So this is written by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, wow.
So it's written for and by, or for particularly, the business owner that in the 50s were on the back foot as organized labor was pretty effective.
Mm-hmm.
And it actually kind of talks about like, why is the CIO so effective? Why are they always getting what they want out of Congress? And are you like, and so it discusses, it's a good retort to not only being apolitical, but even the ways we do politics and activism, to actually define that politics is the actions of affecting government.
Yeah.
Governance is separate.
Mm-hmm.
So when people complain about governance being it's all politics and it's bullshit, what they mean is, what they're really complaining about is that I would have to do work to make governance work for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that goes for any leftist. It's like, oh, that sounds like hard work.
Yeah.
Can't we just post instead and have fun?
Can't we just meme our way to the revolution?
No, you can, but you can have fun while you're doing the work. But I think it's
not mutually exclusive.
What makes it really hard work and scary is that we don't know what to do. And
absolutely,
basically, to summarize just the first few parts that I've skimmed so far, is the easiest thing to do is be a block captain. Even if there's no organization, no party, third party, revolutionary group, be a block captain, even if it's just for your own agenda. But your agenda is helping the community. So building a community project is essentially being like a block captain without a party. But when you do have a party, then you can do politics, because there is no politics when it's just an individual. And that's kind of what this book is, these pamphlets. This is basically like a training course, that you
cool.
pay for back in the day. And so I would like to, if I'm pitching you, to read this with
sold.
you.
Yeah.
We could definitely read one of these in 2 hours time. Easily.
Very cool. Yeah.
I read the first part in like 10 minutes. So, because it's shorter.
Very cool. Yeah. Next time you're on, let's do that.
All right. Wonderful. So we could set like an every other week or
sure.
something like that.
Yeah.
That would work.
We'll say 2 weeks from now. We'll come back and we'll start digging into these.
Next week I'm skiing. Wonderful. Next week I'm skiing. So
hey, works out then.
All right. Great. All right. So plug my show. I'm uploading more content to YouTube, pretty much episodes. I have the last 3 up right now. I was looking to put the number 137, but like I described earlier, I had a copyright problem, so I have to re-edit it. I have to redo it. Doesn't take too long, but
just one of the songs, something you got flagged for.
Just the intro music I put in because I didn't have the montage as usual.
Okay.
It's the episode I was going to put up was Hypocrites, Planet of Hypocrites, where I discuss Planet of the Humans.
Cool.
Did you watch that one?
I did not. I don't think I did see that one.
I think it's worth it.
Well, I mean, all your episodes are worth it.
No. I don't mean my reaction, but I mean seeing the documentary.
Oh, the documentary is worth it.
And listening to me talk about all the different reactions, because the reactions probably aren't going to make as much sense if you don't see what the movie's content is.
All right. Well, I will go and speak that out first then.
All right.
Cool.
And Three Left Show can be found at threelefts.news. Yeah. And that's it as a web address. Then last 10 episodes are on most or all podcast platforms. I got to complain about that, but I basically said, well, go to the archive but it's like, well, yeah, but I want to be able to stream it when I'm at work or something. So I don't know how to handle that. But yeah. But also I'm going to investigate, it's on the back burner, but it's a co-op that that would be a competitor to a Spotify. Oh. And instead of a $10 subscription, you're paying for like credits that are worth like a number of plays. But if you listen to something enough times, with a credit basically being like a dime, or a quarter, that you own the song and you can listen to it whenever you want.
Oh wow!
Because you basically paid the dollar that
song.
if you listen to it 9 times, it's like you paid the dollar that you would on
Yeah.
iTunes. But
Okay.
it's all going to the artist.
That's kind of the critical part. Yeah.
So
Very cool.
I'm going to look at joining that to not only put my content on it, but also to put in $10 a month or whatever to give it a go. So yeah. So otherwise, anything else I'm forgetting? Except you can contact me on Facebook, on Twitter, I think on Instagram too. Though I think it's just my name, Dan Plaat, not 3 laughs. I suppose if I was a pro, I would just make separate accounts. I can't understand people that have like 5 different social media accounts it's not their job.
Yeah.
It's not their job. If it was their job and they're spending 8 hours a day doing that, you get it. But like,
no,
I can barely keep 2 accounts straight.
I know.
So, okay.
But yeah.
Have a good night.
Thanks for being on. Excited for next time. See you in a couple weeks.
Awesome.
See ya. All right. And Dan was mentioning the idea of having some sort of a collective effort. Just so happens that I'm trying to build a collective of leftist live stream and video creators on Facebook. So if you go to facebook.com/leftsignalboost, you can sign up to be a part of this collective. We already have 4 members. It's myself for We Are Many, The Mind of a Skeptical Leftist, and the Poor Pearls Almanac, all streaming to the Facebook page Left Signal Boost TV. So go check that out if you're interested. We're just kind of trying to do what he said, share an audience, share our promotion, and share all the resources that go into, running and building a leftist channel. So yeah, that's all I got. I'm just going to raid into something random. We'll see what we got up right now. Why don't we go again with Moving Train Radio. It is a Twitch radio station. Really cool. Plays folk political songs, like about organizing, that sort of thing, and covers a little bit of news about labor and organizing and that sort of thing too. So if you're seeing this in another source, there's the link for it. There's another good Twitch stream to check out, and we will begin the raid presently as soon as I can get it going. All right. Have a good night. Thanks for joining me. See you tomorrow night for more permaculture talk. We will be joining Mike Hogue once again. Yep. Didn't work. We will try that once more. Probably just have to refresh here. Raid channel. Trying that raid one more time. All right. See you tomorrow night. All right. Well, it's not letting me raid, so I guess I'll just have to end it. Oh, well. Bye-bye.